Order. May I have an approval for our agenda?
So moves.
Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? Okay, that's what we call the roll, please.
Commissioner Orwell,
Yes.
Commissioner St. Clair,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Matute,
yes,
Commissioner Bates,
Yes.
Commissioner Wade,
Yes.
Chair Higgins.
Yes, our agenda is approved. Moving to consideration from the minutes from August 28th meetings. Are there any amendments to the minutes? If there are no amendments, may I have a motion to approve the minutes? Motion to approve the minutes.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Okay, that's what we call the roll.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Matute,
yes,
Commissioner St. Clair,
Yes.
Commissioner Orwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Wade,
Yes.
Commissioner Bates,
Yes.
Chair Higgins.
Yes. Commissioner Marlowe, you're approved. We'll move to the public comment section. At this time, we'll call for public comment. If you have public comment, something you'd like to bring before the planning commission that is within the purview of the planning commission, we welcome you to come forward at this time. We do ask that you keep your testimony or comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone who'd like to come forward with public comment at this time? Wonderful. Speaking. I think you're better heard.
Okay. Tim Ramey, P.O. Box 429, Cannon Beach. I think you're all probably pretty familiar with my views on the CO 2502 thing. About half of it I like, and about half of it repulsive. But I really think you got a procedural problem. We've got a problem, we've got 2 issues really. One is that this housing committee has been essentially judged to have been an illegal committee. As it was explained to me by city management, it was kind of fine until we published the measure 56, is that right? Notice and.
Can I jump in for just 1 second?
Sorry.
I don't know how this works. It seems to me that your testimony is direct to something we're going to be considering later tonight.
Oh, you didn't have that.
Well, I'm not saying I do or don't want. What I'm suggesting possibly, and this may be a discussion for council, is if you would like it a part of the record, it might be better if you brought it forward at the time that we had that specific item.
Okay,
I'm happy to hear it either way, but it just might be a procedural thing that could be important later.
Okay.
Do we have an opinion outside of that, or, I mean,
I think our general practice has been to hear the testimony on the item at that time.
okay. My suggestion would be that,
I apologize.
no, it is a little greater. So thanks for going with us. We'll come back to it, I promise. Okay. So
We're gonna move, the new city attorney is on as well, shoot white face.
Okay, so, the new city attorney,
So Jody Galvan is right there, and she's the attorney in charge starting in January, taking over for Ashton Driscoll.
Ash, okay.
Yeah.
Ashley's requesting, thank you. Okay, and you said she would like to make a statement?
Yes.
Okay,
I just wanted to introduce myself. I am here just to observe. I'm not taking over for Ashley until she transitions away from the firm until in January, but I'm sort of trying to gain ground on everything that's going on at the city. So Missy is still your go-to attorney as far as land use goes. I'm more general counsel and I'm there for questions as needed, but I'm just going to be in the background. Pay no attention to me, but it's nice to meet you.
okay, well, thank you for being here with us tonight and possibly into the morning. We will move to our first item, the quasi judicial hearing, continuation of the quasi judicial hearing, public hearing CU 2506. William Rasmussen on behalf of Maxine Siegel applying for a conditional use permit. William, Rasmussen of Miller Nash LLP on behalf of Maxine Siegel, application for a conditional use permit for the placement of a new shoreline stabilization structure. The property is located at 3915 Ocean Avenue, tax lot 400, map 41006 BC, in a residential moderate density R1 zone. The application will be reviewed against the criteria of CBMC 17.100, Oceanfront Management Overlay Zone, and 17.86 conditional uses. At the last meeting, the conclusion of our August 28, 2025 hearing, a person requested that the record be left open and the hearing continue. The planning commission voted to leave the record open for 21 days. During the open record period, the planning commission received a challenge to the qualifications of Commissioner Chair Newton to participate in the hearing and the decision regarding the application in an impartial manner. The Cannon Beach Municipal Code states the planning commission shall deliberate and vote on such a challenge. The commissioner who is subject to the challenge will not vote on the motion. So, brave new waters here for us. My suggestion, and certainly we are a body that will come together in terms of how we handle it, is that I talk a little bit about how the decision I did in terms of the question that being asked of us. And then I turn a vote to the vice chair, step out of any kind of voting position. I will not vote. And then, depending on how you all feel about that, I'll either step back into the chair or step into the audience. That's fine. Okay. Wrote some stuff down here just to make sure I got this all right. Well, first, let me state, there was a question about who Diana Turner is in relation to me, lots of different, well, a few different applications. Diana Turner is my wife. I assume, but I don't know everyone of you know that, but it is something that's in small towns because we sometimes assume more than we should. Diana's my wife. It has been suggested that that relationship is a conflict, and it is my opinion why I have taken the position I have, as I've been asked at the beginning of the last meeting, and it was asked at the end of our last meeting during the open record, but that is not a conflict. Our training has taught us, we've been coached by our counsel, that that bar is around a financial interest. I have no financial interest relative to any outcome with the Siegels. I have no financial interest in Friends of the Dunes. And I've spoken with the Oregon Court of Ethics, or excuse me, the Oregon Ethics Commission, and they've validated my opinion. And so really it does come down to a financial position or some kind of financial gain. There was a question about my involvement with Friends of the Dunes. I was involved with Friends of the Dunes from roughly 2014 to 17, 18. We were involved, I was involved with a couple of, it might have been 3, I can't remember, but some pretty, at least 2 pretty high profile dune grading applications. I made sure that before I came on the planning commission, I had no involvement with Friends of Dunes, and that remains true today. I participated in no meetings. I was involved in none of the discussions. Have no financial involvement with Friends of the Dunes. And in coming to the position that I could sit with you to start this meeting last time on this particular issue, I consider all of you about it. I'm going to step out. Well, first of all, if you have questions of me, I certainly want to answer them. And if there are none, I'll step down from any kind of further direction. Are there any questions? No, no, anything online? Okay, Mickey, I'm gonna get over to you. You want the chair off?
No, this chair is great,
Okay.
thank you. This is our opportunity to deliberate. Does anyone want to begin a conversation around the concerns of the group?
I actually have no concerns. The question was asked. I think Clay did some soul searching. And he concluded that, though the question was asked, it could answer the question in the affirmative. So I'm pleased, I'm happy to.
Right here.
Nikki, I'll just second that I have absolutely no concerns. I appreciate Clay's gesture.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah,
I concur. I think there obviously, or from what Clay has said, and I believe him, that he has no financial ties, and no real interest in, other than the code that we are here to represent, city's interests, that he doesn't have the conflict whatsoever, so.
I think I probably relate closest to this, clearly no financial interest. Personal bias is the hardest thing to cure and to prevent. I don't see that in this case. Would have been better to disclose this as a potential bias, possibly in the beginning, but I don't see that as being part of our consideration. That beyond that be something that we're gonna understand, and the spoken word methods, which is my first go to as well. So with their backing, the way that he has their backing, that is definitely where I feel there's no issue at this time.
And I would say for myself, I consider Clay an incredibly upstanding member of our commission with unbelievable integrity. So I have the utmost faith that if Clay has examined his own bias, he's done so honestly and in the interest of being as fair as possible. I would also note that we're in a small town. All of us will have connections to individuals related to virtually every issue. We will never be able to insulate ourselves. We know that city councilors have been asked the same question and have answered as Clay did, that they did not have a conflict when their spouses took action against the city. And in this case, I think the same applies, that we accept that Clay has done what he needs to do to consider bias. In that case, is anyone interested in making posts? For everyone online?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I guess I'm confused. So did Clay recuse himself even though we all trust that he has no financial or personal
No.
bias in the case? Or is he just stepping back so we could talk about him in front of his face?
Yes, exactly. He wanted to see our faces while we speak. He has not recused himself.
Okay, good.
So I think at this point, we should have a motion.
I move to have Clay rejoin as chair.
Councilor, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Wade,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuesday,
Yes.
Commissioner Bates,
Yes.
Commissioner St. Clair,
Yes.
Commissioner Orloff,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moore.
Yes.
Thank you, Aaron, for pointing out these weird. But nonetheless, I do feel important that, we've tried the best chance to have this process be goes in a unique situation like that. So thank you for that, everyone. From the procedural. Okay, so, our record is closed. Let's move to consideration of the application. Actually, we need to give them back.
All right. I am stepping down.
Unless you want
No, I am stepping out. Position as chair for you to return to.
Okay, sure. All right. So, thank you. The public hearing on CU 2506 was closed. Or the record is closed. We'll move to consideration of the application. Who would like to begin our conversation?
I'll begin. I visited the site several times and it's, obvious to me that, there's some erosion problems going on there and that, it's a very low lying property. I think I heard at one point it was one of the top 3 or top 10 low lying properties along Canton Beach, or it's residential properties adjoining the beach. And then here's there's public access right next to it. That is not as not anywhere near as steep as like the haystack one in terms or any of the others. Really, it's probably only 7 to 10 feet in elevation from the beach to the top of the stairway. I think that 2 things may be solved with the vegetative riprap, and that is one, maybe the saturation of the soil and the erosion issue maybe also solved to some extent by the vegetated riprap. But what's not going to be solved, in my opinion, is the overtopping and the potential for flooding the property itself from the waves, the energy coming up the stairway. So it may be a partial solution. Whether it's temporary or how long-term that's going to be is another question. But, I think that vegetated riprap would probably benefit them in 2 ways that I've described. But the other ways, if they're hoping for no overtopping or no flooding, I think that, I don't know if there's a solution to that, at that property, at that elevation.
I completely agree with that. I don't think we solve the overtopping. I still don't see how we get to this being a critical need when they have 30 feet of bluff in front of them between the bluff front and their home. There is still alternative options that I think have not been fully considered. And Jay, you and I started to try to have this conversation with the expert, but we were cut off by the attorney. We still haven't heard a full exploration of reinforcing the code. And to me, there is some excellent vegetation at the top of that bluff, and I'm very concerned that we actually damage by saying, sure, go ahead and take all of this well-established willow at the top, put in rock, put in sand, and it's very, very difficult to get new vegetation to take. So to me, I don't feel like the alternatives have been explored enough for me to say there's a critical need and that this is the least invasive option, because they do have bluff space already in existence. I'm not seeing this critical need that our code requires that we find.
Yeah, I agree, would like to know more about that approach. Looking at topography, looking at being flood zone, there's 4 areas that are similar, including this one. There is Searching, from Searching, there's the Stepping Ocean Lodge, there's Polon, and then there's the Smithly site. I rebuilt the entire lower floor of the Searching because of water intrusions and storms. I've known that logs have come through Chance Cape at 70, right through the building. We all know what Polon Park ramp looks like after a storm. Midway, this is the lowest of those 3 similar zones where we go from DE to AE to X, and this is lower. And that's where I find challenging is I do feel there's a need for something. And because of the massive waves excursions, I do not know if a organic method is for, or not a hybrid, like we were talking about, or organic is going to suffice. Yes, we don't have to work, I think flooding's gonna happen. But more of the bank is taken away, the greater extent the flooding is gonna happen. And we have a midway pump station right behind our house for high pressure lines. And if that gets damaged because we have neglected to provide them with the proper barrier, then that's gonna fall on us eventually. So I think there's more to just consider than what is that on the surface here. I think that we need to look a little deeper on it, to what the extent of the possibility of damage and what the continuing loss of the embankment.
The thing is, that their erosion rate has been the same as the average for the entire North Coast. It really has not been extensive with only vegetation. So to me, to immediately say, well, something's not working, their erosion rate is actually not bad at all. So that's why I think a reinforcement approach, we make sure that toe is reinforced in such a way that the upper part of the bank that is currently secure remains secure. They are not experiencing high rates of erosion. It doesn't matter if they're low or not, they're just not experiencing that. And we all agree that overtopping is not going to be fixed in the river. That's a completely separate concern, and it probably has to do with the fact that they're right next to a set of stairs. And that's a really, really important city access. So I don't suggest that the city remove that access. So to me, we aren't looking at a situation that river even necessarily solves.
But like we were asking about that, we could have gotten information behind, I
I
think.
think that would have been, I would have been very interested in that.
Yeah, I think we can, and I remember that, you know, we walk along and put some, so, and you said, we know it's there, everyone else has already done it, now we're doing people that are not going to. I have seen what happens when it's taken away and not replaced, again, toward, told on a park area. You know, within 2-3 years of the project starting, how much it disappeared.
Yeah.
So there's great potential for this to continue, and I don't think it's gonna slow itself down in any way because of the topography and big flood zones that are there. So, I really would like to move on.
Yeah, I just feel as though this application isn't the right application.
Mm.
And I think that there's room to do something really creative here. And take the advantage of the existing vegetation and realize there needs to be protection of the base.
You know, I guess we're gonna have to have a little change. I know I met my thinking on shoreline stabilization has evolved. You know, I look at it like the state made a decision permitting things beyond a certain point, giving a city the ability to tighten those restrictions, which we've done, and I'm pleased that we have, but we have a pretty bad code in describing what somebody like the Seagulls are supposed to do when they, and they're the best people to decide. I think they have a problem. I mean, it's not for us to decide when somebody thinks they're watching their shoreline road that, you know, they don't have a serious problem. It's their choice, and we need to prove that they don't.
Actually, I gotta stop you right there. They have a. Yeah.
Well, I think,
As a legal matter, it is their.
I think when I go down this list of what they are supposed to do. Priorities for shoreline stabilization, they go down it, they've done A, B, they get to C. We stop and say, well, wait a minute, I know that says planting, riparian vegetation, but what it really means is do, a tarp or whatever you call those. You know, a breed, I'm sorry. I mean, how is a citizen supposed to know what they're supposed to do when you've got planting, riparian vegetation, that's what they have. And then you go down, where the riprap, bulkheads or seawalls are proposed as protective measures, evidence should be provided that higher priority methods for erosion control will not work. I know this has been a point of contention in the past, but I seem to recall the applicant showing a statement from the state in the brochure on shoreline protection that the burrito will not work in a high velocity wave environment.
That was actually a point that Will and I went back and forth on. He asked you to stage that the state's guide on erosion control addressed high wave environments. It's on pages 35 to 36, and the guidebook says when referring to vegetative stabilization, it says the erosion control mechanism is among the only designs of the vegetative stabilization that can survive in open tide within environment. So the takeaway I had was they were saying this type of vegetative solution won't work in this high wave environment. The state's guidebook, which, you know, I'm always looking for, do I feel like this is a fair opinion? Do I feel like I can make a fair judgment? And anytime you have a situation where you have people hired, you have to, there's this, are they coming at it with a completely unbiased opinion? I never felt like I didn't have, I never had a completely unbiased stabilization. I kind of felt at times like they were kind of like, we want a revetment and we're gonna go for revetment, but nothing else will work. But the guide says these vegetative stabilization will work. So I have the state's opinion. And, you know,
I have to pull it up. Will showed something and maybe he
I can pull it up.
Yeah, maybe he mischaracterized it, I don't know.
I think.
But we have, again, what we have is at least our applicant has hired experts and a lot of them. And we have, Friends of the Dunes, and I appreciate everything they do, come and give us the presentation they gave us at the last time we did this. And I think what we'll try to do is say, each of the claims that the opponent is making here, you know, are rebutted by the facts, and I felt like that rebuttal was pretty clear. Now, I mean, if we wanna put ourselves in a position of judging the quality of witnesses, we have experts who are paid. We have non-experts who volunteer their time. Who is better to make that
The state
judgment?
is not a non-expert,
No.
and that's
The state-
that's the guy.
Yeah, so what you're saying is nobody can ever come in and say, I have to have riprap.
No, I'm not at all saying, I'm saying they have to use lesser measures first.
And they have, according to our code, they've done everything except where you interpret it to say something it doesn't.
Well, I think if you think about the age of that particular document, that's what people knew at the time. I think though that the general premise that the least possible damaging method is, I think that's the important piece of that. The fact that it doesn't specifically mention, you know, clay burritos or this newest interlocking log mechanism, I don't think that's the important point.
Well, it is when we try to avoid superimposing our opinions on the code and simply reading what it says.
Well, that we do have documents.
And I
that do
also
mention-
would not agree that the vegetative approach has failed, given that there's only vegetation at that site right now, and it is not particularly eroded, and it has experienced only the erosion rate that is the same average as the entire North Coast. So I don't even agree that there's failure at this point. I understand that we are trying to be as sensitive as we can as a group to the landowner's concerns. But to be honest, there's not a failure at this time.
And when there is,
And so that's why, and
But-
this is why we want to find another solution. We are looking for the least invasive, however, and what I read the code to say is that our job is to say, would this particular stabilization be the least invasive? And we have not heard that yet, because there may be an alternative that allows the vegetative process that is already there to continue to work, but with reinforcement.
and their side has said we consider that in accordance with what the code requires, and we respectfully disagree. So again, we come down to making our decision based upon the credibility of witnesses. One is an expert. And was paid, and that I agree would reflect a little bit on their objectivity, a little bit. And then we have Friends of the Dune who come in and present examples of other ones that have worked, and you can argue whether they've worked or whether they're even relevant because they're such different situations. And
What does work mean to you?
Yeah.
work means getting into fixing a problem at the minimum expense over time.
The minimum
But
expense.
expense is not part of our code,
Well, that's my definition of work.
but we have to
You
use
asked-
the code, and the code does not include economic considerations.
That's not.
And are we ignoring the Surfrider opinion? You bring it up Friends of Dunes, but Surfrider also has a pretty strong opinion on this as well.
I appreciate their opinion too, and I wanna say that I share their desire to protect that, but again, the pictures, I mean, as I was looking at it, and in some of them, she was comparing a January photograph to a June photograph and saying, see, there's erosion. And the reality is, there wasn't any evidence in there that these riprap walls cause problems. And with
I mean, sorry, Mike, the entire Surfrider presentation shows how riprap walls create problems.
The photographs though, I agree, my apologies, I agree that the photographs were not a true representation of situations in the same time and even the same season. So.
So Mike, can we also recall that we had 3 experts speak to us in Michigan, it was July 15th.
Mhm.
One of them was Melissa Cote, who works for Blue Coast Engineering. She builds riprap structures. She said unequivocally, yes, riprap causes shrinking of the beach. She still builds the structures. She agrees that there are times when they are necessary. I would trust that she does not have skin in the game when that level of expert says, yes, it does cause shrinking of the beach.
Yeah, and I hear that, and I also have read, and maybe I shouldn't have, but it's not in every case, and this depends on the hydrology of the beach and all the other things, so. Again, you know, if I were to look at that same situation, what I grew out of that is, in 100 years, that shoreline's gonna be 250 feet west east, and none of this is gonna matter. So, that puts me back in the situation where I argue, we're gonna lose our beach anyway, why not help these people who think they need protection, get the protection that their experts are telling them?
So we are here to look at the question. We are not here to give people what they want.
Well, and that's what I was trying to start with, is when I'm then going through this code, I'm flabbergasted. You're telling me I haven't done everything that I'm supposed to do? Oh, forgive me, as a citizen, I didn't know about, vegetative breeding. How can they possibly know? That planting of riparian vegetation means, a vegetative breed.
There are multiple documents that refer to burritos as vegetative restoration. I would remind you that these individuals did hire experts.
Hmm.
They were very well equipped to receive input on what options there were and how they worked, what they were called. They also had Stephen Robert to consult with. I feel that there are plenty of opportunities for applicants to find that information.
Okay, well, we're just gonna end up disagreeing on that.
Let me interrupt a little bit, please, just briefly, and say that, you know, many of the other homes there have vegetated riprap. So we have one piece left, or maybe a couple of small pieces there that don't have this riprap. Some of it's vegetated, some of it's not. So how much are we really protecting by not allowing these folks to put in vegetated riprap? Because we're looking at maybe 50 feet, or maybe, I'm not sure, I think 50 foot wide. So we have 50 feet that doesn't have this, but much, maybe 80% of the rest of the residents in that low-lying area have it. So are we really protecting anything by disallowing the 50 foot section? Now, I haven't made up my mind yet, but I'm asking the question.
One of those, I think it's a good question.
The other thing is that, how many iterations of whatever we want to require are the landowners required to try? I mean, do they try something that's, little teeny baby steps every couple of years? They have to go in and spend more money, tens of thousands of dollars, because the burritos were successful and they lasted 4 years, and that's a success. We have, curbing the erosion, helping the vegetation, and even with soil saturation, helping with that. Again, not the overtopping and not the flooding. But then they have to go in and spend thousands of dollars to repair that. There is a lot of vegetation there now, and I wish that there was a way, there's a way that that can be incorporated into whatever the solution might be. Because having been there this week, it's hard to tell what's even underneath that vegetation and how bad the erosion is, because the vegetation is so thick and thriving. But I really think that for a 50-foot swath of beach, we have already pretty much given away the farm. When we're looking at that whole stretch down there, we've already allowed, the state has already allowed, the city has already allowed that riprap to be there. And so what are we really protecting by not allowing these homeowners to feel comfortable in their home. The other thing, I don't want to mention just on personal, I don't think during the King tides that I would be comfortable sleeping in the lower floors of that home. The waves or the waves and the action come right up into that area. And I don't know that I would feel comfortable being that close.
So that begs the question, why would you build?
Yeah.
If you don't feel comfortable in your home, why would you build it?
It was the 1970s, right? So we didn't have probably the potential at that time to have the wave that close. I imagine, I don't know for sure, but here in 1973 or 77 when it was built, but
This is a much newer home from that. It was so much more recent.
This wasn't the original.
Yeah, I don't know the date either.
88.
It was,
When was
was
it?
06, I think. It was.
I could have been modeling.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood, I thought this goes back.
But, you know, to answer your query, you're right, there's this question, why does it matter? And I think it matters because there's that tons of feedback by housing cuts. We say yes to this one, and then someone next door says, oh, what about me? And pretty soon, we've 20, 50 feet at a time. I also think we have a precedent issue. If we start to make a decision based on something that's not the code, but based on our concern for landowners, our personal preference, the concept that, oh, whatever, this 50 is already surrounded by riprap, we're creating really, really poor precedents for other situations. We will be meeting many, many riprap applications, and I would like to see us as a body with a really rigorous approach that we can replicate every single time, so that we are not later accused of making decisions that were not in compliance with the code.
Steve, can I throw something out? Because I had that same question we did, which is,
One criteria would be how low the elevation is in this particular case.
I think if some kind of matrix existed that compared elevation over mean sea level versus the modeled wave energy, I think there could be a scientific rationale, but it doesn't exist. It needs to exist or something that we could work with.
Well, it's,
It doesn't exist today.
that's an interesting proposition because basically it says charting up to and short of riprap, because there's no science. And then when we decide you've done enough, we'll like do riprap. That's basically what we're saying. And I think honestly, if somebody comes in with a strong case, which I think they have, they try to answer the questions. I picked up a couple of new arguments from Ms. Turner, particularly in her reply this week, that I thought were good, that not quite cogent, and I just think, again, we'll just, I'm sorry, I'm just belaboring, beating a dead horse, and I'm gonna stop.
What's it really dead?
I'm beating a dead horse.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think your questions are really good. And, the question you had that I really have gone back and forth on is, gosh, it's riprap all over that section of the beach. And, you know, maybe in a little different words than what you said, Mickey, the counter to that is we have to protect our process so that we have something that people can consistently come back to. Now, this is kiss of death in public meetings. But if they have done if they have done the vegetated burrito, and it fit, and it isn't intentionally tent, which we've been told by the state people have done. But if they have made a good faith effort and that doesn't work, then, and they come and say, give me the next level, and that's a vegetated, and we believe that's, I would vote for that. I voted for riprap in the past. When I stopped voting for it was when I realized people were not following the code. And that was brought to our attention by people who have no bias in this conversation. They're just telling us how to interpret the code of the state. After that, I had to start following through. In our code, overlaying it with what's written by the state's guidebook on erosion control, okay, we have to follow this process. I have so much compassion for people in that situation. We're going, what about me? You guys did it back in the past. Well, we don't know. The relationships that happened back then in terms of who owned a grading company and who had a buddy that worked somewhere else. I don't think things were done the same way we do. I don't think they had as many conversations about whether you should be in the conversation or not, as we have in this world we live in today. But my goal in sitting on this body, you guys, that I'm gonna follow that code. I've lost friends over that conversation. I've had people chase me down the parking lot that I used to shake hands with over that conversation. But there's a pretty prescriptive path that I've answered that question to myself. On that particular piece, I said, gosh, it just stinks, but it's a code. And I got it all.
Look, this question is, did they satisfy? We're determining whether or not they satisfy the code.
Whether they satisfy the question as to our lesser measures work. And then you get into, and you can take that down a lot of different rabbit holes. What is it to work? Listen, if someone came in here and said, hey, we poured sand over the side and it blew away in a season or one king tide equipment. I'm not gonna come in and go, well, it worked, it held the wage back for a season. That's not fair. It's also not a reasonable expectation that it's gonna work based on what we know and have been told by experts and read from people who have no dog in the fight is a long-term fix for that. It's possible that these vegetative burritos can work. I can't unequivocally tell you, based on anything that's been presented to me in terms of what I've interpreted, that won't work. And until I can do that, I can't say that I satisfy the code.
I guess here's where, I was persuaded. It's not, is there no way that thing can work? Did they meet the burden of proof by the preponderance of the evidence based on everything I got? Who won the argument? It's not. I happen to think that in this case, yeah.
I think that's where I see it, that they did not meet their burden.
Yeah, okay.
So I have the same quandary, since I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that I know what the answer is, but the thing that we really haven't talked about yet tonight, that to me ended up being the big key to all of this, is the understanding that there isn't a permanent fix. That no matter what you do, there is an annual maintenance cycle that's got to happen. And no one can prove to me that any of that ever happened on any of the examples of riprap or burritos or any of that stuff that we've seen. Nobody kept records. There's no way to prove it. Yet we've seen what happened in just one season with erosion. We know people have to go back. It has to be replanted. That's a part of it. So I feel sorry for the folks that are in the position that they're in. I know that, I don't know what to do. I know how I would feel if I were them. But what I wanted to say is, if we as a group choose to render an opinion, I want to insist on a written maintenance plan that can be followed and enforced, because that's what's missing. No matter what they put out there, what they proposed with the sand covered riprap, the sand is going to be washed away in a season. It's got to be put back, and I want to hear somebody tell me that's what they intend to do. There are no permanent fixes.
No, that you can add as a condition.
I don't know if that helps or not, but that's kind of where I came out of it. I saw tons of data that was just as confusing as can be to me, and it seemed like the question was always, yeah, but how is it maintained? And we didn't.
Yeah, and to your point, Les, the permanent fix is to move away from the beach. And it's hard for me to feel sorry for someone that owns beachfront in Cannon Beach. I feel sorry for people that don't have homes, not those that that live on the ocean, that have this as their big problem. I mean, they recently built the house. They had an architect, they put it on stilts. I haven't seen water go through the home yet. Jay, you've had instances of homes or buildings being destroyed. That hasn't happened here. So, Mike, you asked who won the argument. I mean, is it time to vote? Or we can debate this for more months. I mean, how long have we been on this issue?
I think it's time to vote. I agree with you.
Would someone like to make a motion?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve C 2506 with the condition that there's written and enforceable maintenance plan included.
Second.
There's a second. Second. Further discussion? Les, you had said you wanted a maintenance plan associated with an improvement.
Yes,
Okay.
and I believe Jay mentioned that, I think if we're gonna go forward with anything, there needs to be something more put in place.
And I would state that they were surprisingly clear that there is not a particular intention to vegetate. The report specifically referenced, we will try vegetation for, I believe it was 3 years, and if it fails, it fails. So I do not agree that this is an applicant who's intending to work hard to maintain vegetation, so when you talk about maintenance, you're going to talk about enforcement. And it's gonna have to be written somewhere that it actually is enforced.
Which
That's a
is
problem,
problematic.
huge problem.
I agree.
Which is the problem, writing it or insisting it?
Enforcement. I mean, the current documents require pictorial evidence to be filed on an annual basis, but I don't believe that it exists in our record keep.
Also, how do you enforce that it's gonna be continually replanted, and how do you enforce that it's Hooker willow and not grass? We, at least Clay and I, sat on the application when these exact same individuals came and asked for a couple berm. They promised Hooker willow, and what is there is European beach grass.
So is there an additional condition that you'd like to add to my motion?
I'm asking for ideas how we make sure that enforcement occurs,
Well, that would
because
be,
it would be a condition.
that would be part of the condition.
That Hooker willow be required,
Okay.
and that it must be enforced that they continue every year to replant if that planting fails.
No, let me make one more suggestion for maybe a modification to your proposal. We do it tentatively, or it's proposed tentatively, so we can come back and review any enforcement provisions we come up with here tonight, as well as any maintenance provisions. Are you okay making a motion of a tentative? See,
Explain it, so that would be, the opinion comes back, we come together to approve the opinion, and then it's final.
we as a group come back, we look at the language, make sure it's written as we intended it.
The order.
And then the order,
I think it's good.
and then we will.
Okay. So we'll make motion to approve CU 2506 with a written and enforceable maintenance plan that includes a Hooker willow for the 3-year maintenance plan that the owner must document and send to the city.
Just tentative approval. Tentative.
And 3 years is not enough, so we're talking at least 5 years.
So, proposed approval of CU 2506 with written enforceable maintenance plan that includes Hooker willow plantings, 5-year maintenance plan that is written and enforceable.
All right, I like it.
For a second,
Second, yes, sir.
for the discussion. So writing with a maintenance, with an enforcement plan. I feel like we gotta be better now. We're gonna, if the concern is we want something that is not gonna be just a bunch of rocks, I'm assuming that what that was voiced in, rest of you can help me with this. We need to be more specific.
How about the sand and Hooker willow are replaced as needed annually for a period of 5 years.
Sand and
Rocks repositioned if necessary.
that'll be maintenance, so, maintenance. Seems like you want to have some sort of licensed landscape professional put together that plan. And as well as, you know, in addition to the plants, it would have to be some sort of maintenance schedule with a landscape professional certified. I'm just ripping there, guys, trying to come up with something.
I think you got a pretty comprehensive definition of what maintenance is. Can you repeat it?
Well, there too, you're right, approval of CU 2506 with the condition that we have a written enforceable maintenance plan that is based on yearly or annual review for 5 years by a landscape professional that includes turtle willow, sand replacement, and riprap rock adjustment.
And are we okay with the French drain creating a point source? That was part of the application or the discussion was to include a French drain, and I think that's a significant concern.
That part of the application.
It was,
I don't recall.
what I'm concerned is that if we approve this as is, I would be fine if we said we are specifically not approving the French drain. So that would have to be a separate application.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, we do have a lot of water dumping under a beach. Up
We
and
do, but
down.
it still is a point source that needs to be addressed.
So let's just say, yeah, no French drain. So repeat it one more time and then let's vote on it.
Okay, let's give it another shot. Approval of CU 2506. With the condition that there's a written enforceable maintenance plan based on a yearly maintenance written by a licensed professional for 5 years that includes hooker, willow, sand plate, and riprap adjustment, not to include French drain for additional drainage downside.
Riprap adjustment, needs to be better defined in my opinion. I feel
The
like
maintenance of the riprap and maintenance of the physical riprap.
yeah, that's close.
Well, put replacement of riprap or rocks, repositioning.
Repositioning.
But so, and
Or
again,
as part
having
of the yearly maintenance.
sat through so many of these conversations, I mean, they're just, my mind is just spinning on all things. What is replacement? How much do we allow? Because all of a sudden now replacement, I gotta replace it, so there's 90%.
That's the wrong word.
Let's just include the riprap treatment adjustment as yearly maintenance. That's within the
What,
yearly
as
maintenance.
a percentage of the whole revenue?
You know, replacement, just, I think you can just say a maintenance plan by a licensed professional. I don't think we all are, and that's, we're looking to approve the application to add the riprap. So maintenance is gonna be part of that.
Yeah.
That means moving rocks or adjusting rocks, that's gonna be part of,
Well,
included in your.
it makes sense to me, but if it's a point of contention, and I can understand how it might be. The reality is, take it out, because then they're just gonna have to come back and ask if they wanna put rocks back in. So take it out.
It's including, I think that would just be common sense part of the maintenance
Yeah,
itself. Cross factor.
I know, but just take it out.
Yeah, how many times have we had common sense, Jim?
Okay.
Yeah.
Approval of CU 2506. With the, condition that we have a written enforceable maintenance plan based on by a licensed landscape professional on a yearly basis that would include hooker willow, sand, and sand replacement, and not to include French drain for site drainage.
Will you read the part just after the maintenance plan one more time, please?
By a licensed professional landscape.
Okay, keep going.
That on a yearly basis for a term of 5 years. That will include hooker willow and sand replacement, not to include the French drain.
So I'm just talking out loud. There's so much language in my head, I don't have it. Again, you can play this out so many different ways, if something you've seen from before. King tide comes. Damages through them. A lot of the plantings are missing. I guess it falls under enforcement. What's the timing of when that has to be replaced?
On an annual basis. Yeah, I mean, that's what they're repairing out here now, the old Jack Ramsey house is about annual, they go out and fix it.
We do now.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you guys, honestly, my mind could go in so many different ways where we've got more than that, but I'm gonna just be quiet. So, we have a motion, we have a second, have we satisfied your concern about, having language in there?
Yeah, again, mine was, yes.
Okay, any further discussion?
General observation.
That's what we call local.
Commissioner Sinclair,
No.
Commissioner Bates,
Yes.
Commissioner Orloff,
Yes.
Commissioner Matusek,
No.
Commissioner Moore,
No.
Commissioner Wade,
No.
Chair Higgins.
No. Go back to discussion.
Did we just, reject it?
The motion to approve the 25 motions was failed.
Okay, and so how about this, and we reject the application?
I'll second.
Is there further discussion?
Here, can I suggest, if there's going to be a denial, it's very helpful to the staff who's writing the findings for the denial to discuss the specific criteria that the commission feels are not met.
Would you like me to amend? Is it? Or would you like to just withdraw yours and I can make a new one?
Yeah, make a new one, I would draw.
Alright. I move that we tentatively reject on the basis that this project has not shown that there is an immediate need for this level of state shoreline stabilization. They have not shown that they have tried all possible alternatives that are of a higher priority than this alternative. That's where I'll stop, and then we can review the findings. Does anyone have anything to add? I'm happy to amend that motion.
Wait a second. Okay, so we have a second, a little bit of discussion about any possible amendments to the motion as made.
Can we read the motion, Chair?
So I tentatively move that we reject this application because they have not shown that this structure is the minimum necessary to provide the level of protection required. And because they have not shown that there is currently a critical need for this level of protection.
If I could just, during the discussion, robust discussion prior to the voting, there was some discussion about the experts who have submitted evidence into the record, and one of the commissioners referenced an expert that was not the applicant expert. I want to say the name was Emily. Again,
Melissa Cote.
if the commission wants to discuss their choice to believe one set of experts over the other set of experts, that would also be beneficial in directing findings.
Okay.
Just add, and that we find the expert for the opponents. In their point, this is gonna cause problems to the most critical.
I wouldn't be country. I mean, I'm just talking. It seems to me that
sway the reading of criticism.
We have relied on the state guidebook. We have relied on information from Jessica Cote of Blue Coast Engineering. We have relied on information from Surfrider and information submitted by Friends of the Dunes that includes multiple scientific research articles by authors whose research focuses on shoreline and shoreline stabilization.
Are we trying to add credibility to what we're saying? Or, because in general, I would think that, you know, the burden of proof is on the applicant. It wasn't that. Do we need to go with like
Yeah.
the testimony more?
Yeah, I think that.
I think it feels enough. If there's something I'm missing in terms of why it wouldn't be enough.
Typically, when an applicant submits to meet their burden of proof, expert reports. And the planning commission may choose not to rely on those reports, particularly if there's contradictory expert reports. An explanation of the choice not to rely on those or not to believe them is helpful to uphold the denial.
I'm comfortable with it, given that that's exactly what we did discuss.
Alright, okay. Want to read it one more time?
I don't know if I'm gonna remember all that. No, I can do this, all right. So I move that we tentatively reject this application because the structure, the applicant has not met the burden of proof to show that this shoreline protection structure is the minimum necessary to provide the protection required. And because the applicant has not met their burden of proof to show that there is a critical need for this protection at this time. In making this decision, we also considered the state guidebook. We considered input from experts such as Jessica Gauthier from the Blue Coast Engineering firm. We considered experts testimony provided by Surfrider and by Friends of the Dunes, and specifically, we also considered the scholarly works and research conducted by individuals who do research on shorelines and shoreline stabilization.
Second that one.
Give you a second. Okay, any further discussion? Dustin, you call the roll.
Commissioner Sinclair,
Yes.
Commissioner Matusek,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Orloff,
Yes.
Commissioner Wade,
No.
Commissioner Wade,
Yes.
Chair Newton.
U 2506 is denied. We'll move to our next.
Excuse me, you want to reconvene to review the findings? Okay,
It's gonna be important, probably next Thursday, if people can do it, because that can get enough time to do the findings. Again, we're getting close on 120 days, so we gotta get out the notice and the appeal periods so that if they choose to get the council, and council has time to act on the application.
Okay, so, next Thursday, is there a time that
Would
we're,
anybody, prefer 11, 1, any times, anyone wants to? And this can be, people can call in.
Yeah.
Yeah, by Zoom, we'll probably maybe do it in the September City Hall conference room, so if anyone wants to be there, but for the most part, everyone, we've done it in the past where people have just participated by Zoom
Yeah, let's do that.
let's do it.
those times. Any time in particular?
Anytime for me, yeah, so 11? Is that what you guys?
Yeah, fine.
That's fine.
Thursday, so. Thursday. 11 o'clock, October 2nd.
We'll move to our next item. B 2503 and CU 2507, Scott Robertson on behalf of Eric and Joan Witcher for a conditional use and variance permit for a residential build in a wetland lot of record. B 2503 and CU 2507, Scott Robertson hired on general contracting policy on behalf of Eric and John Witcher for the construction of a new single-family dwelling on wetland lot bracket. Subject property is located on the corner of Hemlock and Sixth Street, tax lot 305, map 51019 AD, in a residential medium density R2 zone. The applications will be reviewed against the criteria of the municipal code 17.102, wetland overlay zone, and 17.6 conditional uses against the criteria of the municipal code 17.90 variance. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the planning commission to hear this matter at this time? Does the commission member believe he or she has a conflict of interest or a personal bias? Has any commission? Okay. Has any commission member had any ex parte contacts or made a site visit? We have the staff report.
The application is for the construction of a new single-family dwelling of partially built property that is within the well inventory site number 19. Existing development consists of an elevated steel frame and subterranean utility connections. The existing development is authorized by Oregon Department of State Lands Removal Fill Permit 41880-R-F that was issued in June 2009. This application seeks to complete development of the property for utilization of these existing on-site resources in order to minimize disturbing activities. Wetland delineation 2024-0284 shows two distinct wetland areas totaling approximately 840 square feet. The remainder of the site falls within the 50-foot buffer area. No tree removals will take place as there are no trees present on the property. Moving into the applicable criteria for the wetland overlay zone requirements. The first staff comment is due to the site's characteristics, there are no opportunities for development outside of the delineated wetlands or their buffer area. The applicant proposes to utilize portions of the existing 2,470 square foot pile driven structural framework and utility connections that were previously installed as part of a residential development that was never completed. The applicant's intention is to minimize ground disturbing activities that could adversely affect the wetland through the reuse of the framework. The applicant previously filed applications for development of the property, filed C number 25.4 and E number 25.2, which the planning commission reviewed and denied during its May 2025 hearing. The proposed dwelling will have a footprint of 1,250 square feet, with an additional approximately 900 square feet of developed surface area and will provide off-street parking, decks, and stairways to access the dwelling. As the proposed footprint and other hardscape areas exceed limitations imposed by 17.102.70B1, the applicant is requesting a variance to these standards. Continuing on, the primary mitigation measure taken by the proposal is avoiding ground disturbing activities by utilizing the existing pile-driven structure to serve as the foundation of the dwelling directly on deck. Additional mitigation measures specified by the application are detailed in the staff report. In order to expedite the staff report, I will continue on. Into the stormwater management section, the staff comment is that the application narrative is that A3 states that stormwater will be retained and discharged into the wetland buffer area. Alternatively, stormwater can be connected to existing municipal infrastructure as necessary. Moving into conditional use overall standards, staff report is that the subject property is zoned residential medium density R2 and a single family dwelling is permitted use in that zone. The surrounding neighborhood is residential in nature, and the property was originally intended to be developed as a single family dwelling. The proposed structure conforms to the development standards of the R2 zone regarding setbacks, building height, and floor area ratio. Municipal infrastructure is present in the 6th Street and North Hemlock Street public rights of way and is sufficient to serve the residents. No significant traffic impacts are anticipated by this proposal. Moving into the variance criteria. The staff comment is municipal code 17.102.070B restriction regarding maximum building coverage on a wetland lot of record to 1,000 square feet, with an additional 400 square feet allowed for other improvements such as off-street parking areas, walkways, patios, etc. The application proposes to use approximately 1,690 square feet of the existing 2,470 square foot elevated pile driven steel framework to support a 1,250 square foot house and approximately 500 square feet of elevated decks and porches. Unused portions of the steel framing will be removed during construction. An additional 350 feet of ground coverage will be required for an off-street parking area and walkway. The prior construction of the pile supported foundation is not considered to be a violation of the municipal code or any type of self-induced hardship, which would disqualify this matter from being considered as part of the variance request. And that concludes the staff report.
Thank you. Have you received any additional correspondence that we do not have?
No.
Thank you. I'll now call for public testimony. The pertinent criteria to be considered are noted from the staff reports and listed on the criteria sheets on the meeting page of the city's website. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward those criteria or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or municipal code which the person testifying believes apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision makers and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal based on that issue. Prior to the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional testimony, arguments, or evidence regarding the application. Sorry, I've only read it 100 times. Planning Commission shall grant such requests by continuing the public hearing or leaving the record open for an additional written testimony, arguments, or evidence. Persons who testify shall first receive recognition from the chair, state their full name and mailing address, and if appearing in representative capacity, identify whom they represent. Your presentation by the applicant.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you very much for hearing us. My name is Scott Robertson with Higher Ground General Contracting. I live at 672 North Hemlock Street here in Indiana Beach. So we were here end of May, and if you might recall, and since then we've taken your guidance that we received that night into consideration, and I've been able to meet with Robert and Stephen a couple of times, and so they've been offering some additional guidance, and so we've done several rounds of revisions and have it was deemed just too large initially, and so what we've done is we've made a number of changes, and really proud of what we've been able to achieve now, so that we don't have to be asking for nearly as much in terms of variance agreements. It is a unique situation in that we are in an active wetland area right there, is why that steel structure was built initially, so it keeps us up off of there and that protects that. And then, so we had initially like a lot of deck space, because we were trying to just utilize all that existing steel structure. And we didn't want to get in there and start removing that and risk damaging the wetlands or have it be a high impact type situation. So we've reduced that greatly, shifted the house slightly to the east, slightly to the north. We have achieved the off-street parking that we wanted. We're totally out of the active wetland now there. And so with that, we're just simply here to show that we've made these substantial changes, and we've got the whole team here. So I'm gonna have Joseph take off now. Thank you.
Joseph Schaefer, land use planner. My address is 1211 Southwest 5th in Portland, 97204. As Scott indicated, we've made some changes in response to the feedback that we heard last time. In particular, last time we had a variance request for the radius area of the front porch, which had encroached into the setback. The maximum setback is 15 feet. Excuse me, the minimum setback is 15 feet. And we still have the radius on the porch, but we shifted the building slightly to the north, the house. Our prior design had the house of up to 10 feet of setback. The minimum setback requirement is 5 feet. So now by shifting it, the closest the house is to the neighboring lot line is 5 feet for this eastern section of the house. middle of the house is 8 feet. This little stoop and stairs down are 5 feet, and then this little bump out is 6 feet. So we still meet the north setback, and we keep our radius in front of the house, and the front setback variance goes away. You may also recall that previously we had a variance for the parking location. In an effort to sort of reduce the ground disturbance, we proposed these same 2 parking spaces essentially a little bit to the south within the right of way. The preference from the commission was to ensure that we had our 2 parking spaces out of the right of way. And so now they've moved just into the private lot itself, which is this dark line. And then we have a minimum walkway as flagstone path. And you may recall that there is a larger front entrance elevated on the pilings. And Jacob will explain more to you in a minute about the other reductions in the deck, which are pretty substantial. And then lastly, Gabby is back to talk about the mitigation plantings. Obviously, by reducing the size of the deck, that creates more opportunities for her to plant more plants. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You may have answered this, so maybe, what's the deck constructed of?
It's on steel pilings.
No, the surface itself.
The deck surface.
Probably some type of composite decking. Oh, that's right, the way for the rain to drain through the water.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the pervious. Yeah, and speaking of pervious, and this was mentioned in the staff report, you may recall last time we discussed the stormwater from the rain drains. And, you know, back and forth, and our current plan is to leave it right on the site. We know there was, you know, historically some discussion about Public Works not preferring that, but that is our preference, that's our proposal right now. Certainly if the city says, well, great house, but we want the stormwater to go in the pipe, you know, we're open to that, but certainly Gabby, our wetland advocate here, is adamant about, no, let's put it on the ground.
That's where our code says too.
Good, any further questions? Thank you.
I'm sorry, I forgot to state this, and it's part of what I was supposed to do in my introduction. I'm here representing Eric and Joanne Witcher, are the owners of the property, and they're actually present here with us this evening. Wife Joanne there. And
These are just large cosmos, just board.
Actually,
Yeah, just to make it really easier to see.
Yes.
Evening, my name is Jacob Chavez.
Dave Chavez Design is my company. My home is at 7873 Southeast 11th Avenue in Portland, Oregon. And I'm here also representing Eric and or Joanne and Eric Witcher. My colleagues here went over a lot of the details, the square footage of the areas and things like that, and that was part of also what I was planning to present. So I'll go ahead and just read what I was planning to present to you as well. So there may be some duplication here. Just want to say thank you for the opportunity to present this design to you this evening. With the customer and contractors' support, it's been my honor to develop this home design. Over the past 2 years, an enormous amount of energy has gone into this effort. The goal has been simple: to create a home that is an asset to the city of Cannon Beach while meeting the simple program of my clients. Although this is not an architectural review, I hope that you can see that the intent has been to enhance and support the character of the neighborhood. This home will be a proud member of the community's architecture. We've designed this home to have a humble pride and a strong sense of connection to the outdoors and a calm sense of community while preserving
as much of the wetlands as possible. As you can see, we've reduced the decks significantly. The previous proposed exterior improvements presented earlier this year in May was 1,711 square feet. 1,187 square feet of which was the deck. We've reduced the exterior improvements to 878 square feet. Now 497 square feet of which is deck. The footprint of the design is 1,248, mentioned 1,250, it's just a tad of it. We've also moved the house to the north by 3 feet and to the east by 3 feet. We have done this to preserve the curved front deck while moving it out of the front setback. The home design now meets all setback requirements. We preserve what we believe is important components of these exterior spaces of the design. I'll describe these exterior spaces and present why they're important. The front porch has been reduced to 231 square feet. The covered portion of it is 90 square feet, and the uncovered is 141 square feet. The covered porch provides important protection for the entry of the home and provides a refuge from inclement weather. In addition, it softens the visual mass of the structure and it softens the two-story wall here. The uncovered curved portion reinforces the symmetry of the center feature of the home and also helping to soften the massing while providing a sunny location when weather allows to connect with the neighbors. The west deck has been reduced to 217 square feet. This deck has a covered area of 62 square feet and an uncovered area of 155 square feet. This area provides an important place to cook and dine outdoors while being able to enjoy the sunset on clear evenings. The areas of the remaining exterior improvements are as follows. Parking now completely on site and out of the right of way, which is 324 square feet. The entry stair, which is 57 square feet. The north stair from the main level to the grade, which is 22 square feet. And the east stair from the main level to the grade, which is 27 square feet. In addition, we have specified outdoor lighting and have ensured that all features meet the dark sky requirements. And that can be found on page 7 of the submittal documents. Those aren't in the printouts here, but they're in the application.
Electronic copies.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
The electronic copy version is within the packet.
yeah. I just want to thank you for the time and the opportunity to provide this beautiful home to you today. We've worked hard to develop design and we hope that meets your approval. At this time, I welcome any questions and comments.
I would like you to, so I understand that you've moved the structure to the north.
Yes.
I won't ask how you did that with a fixed metal substructure, but I'm sure you figured that out. But you made a point, and I think it was an important one, that you also considered the solar access of the property to the north. And I was kind of curious, how did you move closer to the property yet improve their solar access or at least maintain it?
Well, I'm not claiming that we are improving it or maintaining it. It will have a slight impact, moving to the north for sure. But the configuration of the roof, that we, from the initial design was always with the intent to provide as much solar access to the home, to the north.
Okay.
But in order to, we want to reduce the number of variants that we've been asking for. And in doing that, we felt that this curved portion of the front deck was important to the design, the architecture. And this was a way to take it out of the variance request.
I had a similar concern. Have you reached out to the neighbor? I know that he was able to attend last time.
Earl and I are fairly regular contact. I lived in the neighborhood right there.
Yes,
So
there you go.
we see each other. If I'm, say, attending to the lot with the vegetation, we have the invasive species issue that I've been dealing with.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I get to see him and we've gotten to be, but we have a great rapport.
Is he aware that
His
this
wife
is shifted a little bit closer?
Mhm. Yeah, a little bit to the north. To speak to this gentleman's question about that, how do we do it? It's just by eliminating, well, we had deck wrapping around the entire house, and so now by shifting the house, and then the deck goes with. So we get to utilize the existing two structure, yeah.
Very good.
But the frame was already there.
Yeah.
So the frame was,
All different items.
That the driveway, the parking areas will be gravel or permeable.
Well,
Yeah, initially, thought was that it would be gravel. I think that we are completely open to the possibility of some type of a pervious, paver situation as well.
Okay, I just know that that's one of the key issues, obviously, with my wetland lot, we want to be sure that there's no impervious surfaces as possible.
I've been talking to
yeah,
Trevor.
grass free. You know, we're completely amenable to grass free. We only ask that you don't insist on so-called permeable pavements or paving. That will be fantastic for a month. And then will silt up and not be effective. Are you familiar with the grass creek?
I don't know.
Okay, so it's a product that is essentially cinder blocks, your typical like 8x16 cinder blocks. Imagine those tilted on their side and they're in an
Okay.
X pattern. So I think the net effect, don't quote me on this, but you have essentially, I'm gonna guess, close to half and half cinder, how many I say? It's 50%. It's 50% cinder block, 50% grass.
And I've seen that, I just
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
aware.
Well, my neighbor has it, it works.
I know when we talked with Public Works about this particular wetland code, they actually voiced a preference for gravel because if there's a water leak or something, it's the least damaging for them to have to come in and repair. Something to keep in mind that the city would probably prefer gravel.
We currently have proposals to gravel, but we were certainly open to changes as
Yeah.
suggested.
Then you're the driver, I mean, you're the decider. So.
Sounds like gravel is what we wanted to do, so that's.
And you do know 3/4 miles gravel over road base, seeded with grass, which I think is.
Right.
You know, a grass creek alternative, you're still gonna get a base and you're gonna, permanent surface and have some. Green space to it. So I think what you have in order to location. Okay?
Any questions about the design and site plan?
So one thing I have to tell you is that, thank you for those resources, and made a huge difference in what I think Mickey and I were talking about last week. And
Great.
when I went back and looked at your previous middle and this one, flash between that. I think moving house was the right idea, and just try to go, your architectural bow in the front. I don't think the solar access is gonna be a huge deal, like giant trees in the back there. There's no impact to the north. One thing I do know is that your east entrance is still not fine for code because of the steps into the side.
You said it's here?
Yeah, right there. If you rotate them 90 degrees, maybe 36 feet, then you're gonna be within your setback.
Do we have an 8-foot setback? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
we have quite a requirement there. Your face, your setback 3 so all that.
Yeah.
Like I say, and then I can tell you what code that is actually, if you want.
I know, yeah.
That's fine, we have the areas, not a problem.
So I think we brought that up. The only other thing that I would like to talk to you about is your construction management plan. And that you are stating, which I think is reasonable. One thing I would like to see is that you have your dumpster towards the west side of the site. I think for myself, I first see that actually in where the parking area is clean. Road, and that way you're, again, less being in the path. You do know that you're gonna have bark chips or heavy landscape fabric that are standard for protection of wetland temporarily during construction. But the way that that dumpster, you put it on where the gravel path's gonna be, I would feel aware about.
That makes sense.
Yeah, interesting, we actually had that in one of our iterations, we had the dumpster there, and, yeah.
You have plenty of parking on site, you have, to the east or to the west of the site, you have a large open area in the right of way, so.
Yeah.
You have plenty of parking, right now, you're close to having parking right there for you. Temporary, but I think you just do that, I think that'd be a lot better.
Okay, thank you.
But again, huge. And I'm glad you didn't have to compromise problems, so.
Yes.
Gentlemen. Any further questions? We also have Gabby, who's speaking.
It's for easy reference, no, the packet. This figure details how we determined it has.
Anticipated my question.
Robert, will you transfer me? I'm gonna come in on my phone if that's okay. I'm gonna log off here and join back on my phone.
Would you like me to wait until he's back on?
Probably ready to, we have a name. I think that's okay.
Great. My name is Gabby Bender. I'm a biologist with Ecological Land Services. My professional address is 1157 3rd Avenue, Suite 220A in Longview, Washington.
Okay, good. And, Robert, let us know when you have Aaron back. What's your Aaron? Fair. Okay, great. Let's go ahead, Deb.
So I wanted to start by talking about how we determined impacts, permanent and temporary to wetland buffers, because there was quite a few questions about that. And one of the comments we received is that the decking, even though it would be built over the existing steel structure, should be considered a permanent impact due to its ability to prevent infiltration of water below the decks. We've taken that into consideration, and we've determined that the decking, the home, and the driveway, which has the gravel surface, should all be constituted as a permanent impact. And based on the figures our firm has put together, permanent impacts total 2,782 square feet. We've also taken into account temporary impacts, which is where you'll see construction equipment accessing the property. And those areas will be lined with bark chips and landscaping fabric, which after construction is complete will be removed, regraded if necessary, and reseeded with a native seed mixture. Overall, with the changes we made to the site, we're now able to meet the mitigation ratios required in Cannon Beach's code. We're actually slightly over mitigating for the permanent impacts at a 1.03 to 1 ratio. We're proposing a combination of trees and shrubs with a 25% tree base and 75% shrubs, in addition to the native seed mixture, which will be spread in all available and buffer areas following construction. That's really my spiel, short and quick. Any questions?
I'm gonna ask the same thing I asked last time, which is for weed control, no herbicides through code. I want to be really clear that everyone agrees. This plan does not include using herbicides.
Yes.
I actually listened to a hearing a couple of months ago where there was a gal that was trying to do something with the blackberries, and she was supposedly citing a study that showed that trying to do it by hand was less effective than the chemical, which I don't agree with. And so, yeah, I think we talked about this last time. I've been trying to, with the tarps and the vinegar and the salt and. Are you seeing it? Yeah.
ELS's report does contain performance standards for invasive species control, which restricts the use of chemicals. Our performance standards also include a contingency plan in case we're not meeting survivability standards. So if by year 3 of the proposed 5-year monitoring period, we're not on track to meet those standards, we come in and reevaluate and develop a new plan. And essentially we have to determine what the appropriate extension of the monitoring period would be.
Yeah, and we'd be, on the chemical question, we'd be happy with a condition of approval, to that effect.
Any other questions?
You're removing, like we talked about previously, moving that dumpster, you might reduce your impact to wetland and not have to use as much fabric and bark dust over on that side as well. So you further improve, your impact there. Okay, less impact, that's great.
Oh, and
Thank you.
one thing I actually forgot to point out here is that when we determined our mitigation ratio that's slightly over that 1-to-1 that's required in the code, that does not include any of the restoration for offsite areas, which will be temporarily impacted.
Any further questions? Thank you very much. Is there anyone further on behalf of, you'd like to speak?
Mr. Chair, here to go against the questions. Now, so we have, his latitude show in the other board. Not, all right.
There is one that will also provide the section zone around the street that are not on the property, but with that includes the ones to the north and to okay.
Your protection.
That zone,
Neighbor.
yeah, you have TPZ shown on your streets in the right of way.
Right.
You also goes to the north, even though they are not on your property.
Right,
And one, okay, east, which is also.
yeah,
And that'll be determined by.
right, yeah.
I see.
I've had Trevor out there, actually, we had a really great team of volunteers that cleared that, there's a little drainage pit that comes from the main wetland through. And they also planted some cedars at that time, so they cleared the stuff and so, yeah, the alders that you're referring to, I think are quite a bit back and. So we can do whatever we need to with that, and I can coordinate with city works on that as well.
There are any final questions? Actually, you'll have another opportunity to present, but are there questions at this time? There are questions, okay. Then we will move to, presentations. By, actually, that was by the applicant, so are there any presentations by proponents? One online, okay, moving to presentations by proponents. For this project. Online, Robert? Yeah. Okay. You have the final opportunity to add anything you'd like before we put the record to move to consideration. If there's something that you would like to add to what you presented to us already, now is the opportunity to do that.
Joseph Schaefer again. I would like to add that I think we're feeling very well received tonight, and we would like very much to have a project approval. And I think we talked about a couple of conditions that you might want to clarify in the decision to nail these things down. Regarding the construction management plan, locating the dumpster on the gravel area that'll eventually be the off-street parking. Tree protection with fencing for the trees located on the neighboring properties to the north and the east. The trees are available or visible there on the site development plan. And a redesign of the steps leading down from the east door to ensure that they are out of the side setback. And also clarification that no pesticides will be used for herbicides, excuse me, herbicides will be used for treatment of invasive species. Scott is gonna keep digging forever and ever. Do you have any sons that can pick that up with you?
Yeah, I've got a guy that.
And I think that covers them all. Did I miss any? Just to sort of sum up.
I guess. One last thing I would like to add is like for the local area residents that have been there for any length of time, you know, with witnesses, with this steel structure that's been sitting there for ages. I forgot to mention that in the beginning. I mean, this has been going on now for 15 years, I think, plus. And so I'm just so excited as a person that lives right behind that to have the opportunity to finally develop that lot. And just finally have a really beautiful home there to just improve that neighborhood. And we all like to walk around there, and so it's gonna be, I think it's a really welcome addition. And I have gotten a lot of positive support from the neighbors too, so I've got to know Kim and Eric to the east and Carol, of course, there to the south, and several other people, Gian and Wes. And general just positive vibes, I would say, about it, so thanks so much.
Thank you. Attorney Staff,
I do have one clarifying thing regarding the east step entrance. 1760-080 projections into required yards. Item number D, building entrances. unroofed landings may project not more than 36 entrances into a required front yard, rear yard, or side yard. So the eastern section may be permissible as a permitted projection.
That's fine, and we appreciate that for clarification, but if there's a way to redesign them. To keep them out, even if they're allowed. What I'm hearing is the commission's preference would be to not have them in the setback at all. And looking here at the
I mean, I think we're open to doing either way. It's a fairly simple change. Would require a little bit of additional steel fabrication, I think, to put a landing on there, but in some ways, it would actually be a little more, functional stair, I think, if it did have a landing and then extend it down to the north, rather than coming down the stair right into a fence. So I actually like that design, and I would recommend that revision to the other.
Okay. Any final comments, questions? We'll close the record. And the record. Yeah, I'll now close the record and move to our deliberation. We'd like to start.
Here, and satisfied with the talked about, and actually, I'm ready to make a motion on the discussion.
Anyone else like to add anything at this point?
I would just like to ask a question of the commission. And wonderful job, they really listened to us and I appreciated all that. But so really all we're being asked for is, where our code allows 1,000 square feet, they want to throw 50. You know, where we allowed an additional 400 feet, they've got 500 feet of deck and 350 feet of driveway. Now, I don't have a problem approving it as they've applied, but it kind of makes me wonder if we've got certain size square foot limitations in our code, shouldn't we discuss why it's okay to be bigger than that? I haven't heard anybody talk about it. It's a beautiful house.
I think the reason for it being bigger is the property was already, basically, touched with these steel beams. These people are gonna shrink it a little bit and turn, I guess, what I would call is turning lemons into lemonade. And that's the difference, I think, that would distinguish it from somebody who just came in and said, I want a 1,200 square foot home with a 1,000 square foot limitation.
I can accept that. I just wanted to have that
The
conversation.
existing structure, what did it for me, I've seen that existing structure there for years and years, and, the footprint that is greatly reduced from the original structure. Structure is there, it's an eyesore as it sits. And I think this is a vast improvement. They've done things to mitigate any wetland issues, that we have. With the additional plantings, I think that the wetland will be healthier in the long term from the plantings and actually from this design. They're leaving all the water on the property itself. Permeable surfaces where possible. But again, I think it comes down for me, the existing structure that's sitting there growing on the wetland.
Les, I really appreciate that question. And to me, it's not necessarily aesthetic, but it's what does it do to wetland to remove portions of the structure? As I understood from our conversation last time, there were certain portions that were easier to remove than others. At what point it becomes a disturbance to actually do the removal wasn't part of my concern.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And in terms of water remaining on site, I think that is a really important condition. I noticed there was a comment in the application that if the city would allow it to remain on site, do we want this to come back to planning commission if there's any problem with?
I think we do.
Doing that?
We do.
So I think the condition could be read as water to remain on site. The city disapproves water remaining on site. reapply to the planning commission, and then maybe we can have a discussion about variance or talk to public works and have that conversation about how to keep the water outside.
Very good.
Yeah. As you.
Steve, you were beginning to make a motion. Do we, Matt, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do we feel like we need to do this tentatively, or do we feel like it's just something that we can go ahead with?
I think we can move it, you know, with part of the condition that, if our conditions about water or permeable surfaces or any of the other things that aren't met, that it comes back for further review.
Yeah, I like that.
I move to approve B 25-03 and C 25-07 under the following conditions. That the stairs are reconfigured to allow 5 feet setback on the east. Dumpster and the construction plan is placed in the proposed parking and the proposed parking area. The herbicide and pesticides are not used in any of the removal of invasive species, or there's some reason to use pesticides, they're not used. The parking area is in 3/4 minus. They note grass fill, but I don't think that needs to be a requirement. That there are tree protections on the east and the north that are off property but need to be protected. And that the water is maintained along the property itself.
Okay.
With, it comes back if there's, no.
Oh, yes, under the provision that it, if any of these, provisions aren't met, that it comes back for review to the planning commission.
I second.
For the discussion? Should we call the roll, please?
Commissioner Orloff,
Yes.
Commissioner Wade,
Yes.
Commissioner Matusek,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Sinclair,
Yes.
Commissioner Bates,
Yes.
Jeremy.
Yes. E 2503 and CU 2507 are approved.
Thank you.
Condition. Do we want to take a break, or do we want to move ahead with our next item?
Say 5.
5 minute break, we're reconvene at,
5 minutes.
5 minutes to. Call our meeting back for order. Next item is a text for legislative hearings regarding continuation of legislative public hearing. We could begin the continuation of legislative public hearing ZO 2502, proposed text amendments to municipal code, chapter 17. ZO 2502, City of Cannon Beach, request for housing related zoning ordinance. Chapter 17.04, definition 17.30, residential monitoring zone R1 zone, 17.82, residential medium density R2 zone, 17.40, C1 zone, 17.60, general requirements and regulations. 17.6. Am I hearing myself, or what is that accent? 17.68, off-street parking, 17.7, land review, 17.72, 080, accessory dwelling, and a new section 17.60.200, public benefit dwelling, owner occupancy requirements. The zoning text amendments request will be reviewed against the criteria of the municipal code, 17.94.060A, amendments criteria to the state level planning. This legislative hearing to amend the municipal code is being held after providing written notice of the hearing and proposed amendments to the code to DLCP in compliance with ORS 197.619. In addition, ORS 227.186 required the city to provide written notice of the amendments and hearing on use of real property when the city proposes to adopt or amend the code in the manner that limits or prohibits land uses previously allowed in the affected zones. Notice of this hearing has been provided to parties entitled The notice is required by those statutes. Type 4 actions are made by the city council's adoption of an ordinance. Cannon Beach Municipal Code 17.1405 provides that type 4 actions shall be decided by the city after a public hearing. City council may request that the planning commission hold a public hearing in advance of the city council hearing to consider the proposal, public testimony, and provide a recommendation. The city council has requested that the planning commission hold a public hearing in advance of the city council hearing to consider the proposed amendments, public testimony, and a recommendation. I got hung up on it just because I had like, well, we called a few hearings actually. Okay, does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the planning commission to hear this matter this time? Is there a staff report?
Yeah, Mark's person indicated she was available to make this meeting, and at the last meeting, there's updated September 10, 2025 memo from her that addressed a couple of the changes that the planning commission requested of her at last meeting, and those were dealing with the public benefits, dwelling occupancy, where there's some changes in section 1 that discuss where it was talking about once sold, the initial buyer of the dwelling unit shall remain occupied as personal residence of the title holder receiving the public benefit housing allowance for the title holder's renter. There is a modification to the dwellings to be rented from 12 months to 6 months. And then there was a modification to change the limitations for the ADUs from 600 square feet to 800 square feet. So those were the requested changes. And then there was a request from the planning commission that sometimes when the council adopts the actual ordinance, that the effective date is usually 30 days after the council adopts an ordinance. And there was some discussion, and there's going to be a recommendation from the planning commission that be changed to 90 days from the standpoint if there were people out there who had plans submitted that they could be impacted by that 30 days. So again, these are all the changes that were requested, and then the planning commission is making a recommendation to council with regards to the proposed housing amendments. And then the council would have a hearing prior to adoption. So I can answer any other questions, but those were really the directives she was given and the changes that have been made.
Thank you. Other questions? Is there any additional correspondence we've not present?
I think, Tessa, do you recall, we had one from, I believe, Jay Moore that we forwarded to everyone today?
I got it.
I was just thinking
So
about.
that was the additional correspondence.
Okay,
I believe Mr. Moore's on, he had some questions about getting on, couldn't quite get. We put it on the agenda and got forwarded the information because it got to us pretty late. So we were making sure that we submitted those comments to the plan commission.
okay. Thank you. So we'll move to public testimonies. This is a legislative hearing, so probably disclosure do not apply. As such, the planning commission will taking testimony. Persons who testify shall first receive recognition from the chair, state their full name and mailing address, not physical address, and if appearing in a representative capacity, identify whom they present. Would anyone like to come forward? Patient, come on, Richard.
Take another shot at it. I'm Tim Ramey, PO Box 429, Cannon Beach. As I mentioned earlier, I think most of you know kind of my general feelings on CO 2502. There's some parts of it that I think are great, some parts of it that I called for myself, and some parts that I think are kind of an abomination. But whatever you think of the content of 2502, I don't think it's viable. I don't think it will ever withstand the legal challenge because, and I say this with no backward looking judgment or anything. I think that the people who met with the housing subcommittee and these other subcommittees met in good faith and thought they were doing the right thing. But I believe our city has essentially taken the point of view that these meetings were not legally formed. And so the transition from these meetings to a Measure 56 notice is where we got in trouble. And I don't think that, I wish legal counsel would opine on this, but I think it'd be very difficult for this, no matter what the content is, to ever survive the legal challenge. Second, I was really concerned that the city bulletin, which is published by the city, and the city is responsible for its veracity and content, had some blatant errors in it that I asked the city to amend or publish an errata, and to my knowledge, they have not to this date. One of the errors was that floor area ratio was confused with lot coverage. And it really is important to figure out what floor area ratio is and lot coverage is. And the city bulletin left the wrong impression there. The other thing that was there, Commissioner Wade was quoted as saying, which he's perfectly capable of saying, and don't question any of that, that and under the current conditions, you can build lot line to lot line. And now if we do a 0.46 FAR, that would leave some room for nature. He's entitled to his opinion, but you can't build lot line to lot line. And I think that definitely tainted the public's perception of ZO 2502. And finally, Earthworks, the city's consultant, knew or should have known that they should not have been conducting these meetings the way they did. I've been personally frustrated that we've spent a little over $300,000 on Earthworks in the past 3 years, 90,000 in the past year, and we're not getting a lot of product out of them. And I would have liked them to have a little more leadership. I personally am not a big fan of consultant-led efforts because I think consultants have a vested interest in drawing things out and billing as much time as possible. So I think it might be worthwhile for the Planning Commission to consider whether Earthworks is serving the city's best interests. So coming up, I don't think that you could vote down 2502 and then start the effort using the same work product again with a different committee, and that may be completely appropriate. But I don't think that the lineage here will survive the legal challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. Your testimony was great. You've done this before. Thank you. I didn't state it at the time, but if we could keep testimony to 3 minutes for those people coming forward. If there's anyone in the audience, we'll give you the opportunity first time. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward this time? Please come forward.
No, no, 719. Good. What is the comprehensive plan? It's an ordered process that determines community goals and aspirations in terms of community development. It serves as a foundation for other planning documents like zoning ordinances and provides a cohesive framework to achieve community goals related to sustainability, equity, and livability. So I took stuff from our comprehensive plan and just reading into it. I know we were kind of required comprehensive plan as committee members. So this is just on the housing policies. In order to maintain the city's village character and diverse population, the city will encourage the development of housing which meets the needs of a variety of age, income, and groups, as well as groups with special needs. To the extent The city shall endeavor to accommodate affordable housing in a manner that disperses it throughout the community rather than concentrating it on specific locations. The city recognizes that there needs to be a balance between employment and the housing in the Cannon Beach area, and that the city cannot rely solely on other communities to provide needed affordable housing. The city finds that the transient occupancy of dwelling units constitutes a visitor-oriented commercial use in the city's residential areas. In order to maintain the residential character and livability of its neighborhoods and to prevent the adverse effects of transient occupancy of dwelling units of residential neighborhood, it's necessary to limit and regulate the transient occupancy of dwelling units. These are our points. The city will encourage and support the development of housing units in conjunction with the commercial uses in order to provide additional housing, to provide diversity of use in the city's commercial areas, and to provide security to commercial areas. So now this is backwards. Unfortunately, this has become extremely convoluted in turning landowners into unwilling landlords and so on. When it should have been a 100% community involvement, not just a group of all property owners and one mouthy renter. I propose we take what we've learned in this last year, apply a definitive timeline, have an actual community involvement for renters and workers that grease the gears of the city every day. I ask all of you in this room, when's the last time you woke up and wondered, is today the day my home turns into an Airbnb? For some of us, it's a daily fear. Please turn this conversation back to clearing the very real problem of housing insecurity. And final note, I think Marcy has done a really great job, and I think city staff tried really hard and did a good job. And I think Marcy's the good person for this job. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else here tonight who'd like to discuss, bring proposal? No? Anyone online?
Yes, we have Jay Moore.
Please, I must be, I'm fine, go ahead.
You should be coming over here in Ronald.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. Oh, you can hear me now. Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a master Zoom here first. So anyway, my name is Jay Moore. My wife and I own a home at 1388 Pacific. We bought this house about a year ago. The house was built in 1930. So this thing has got some old bones to it. We bought the home with the assumption that we would be able to remodel or rebuild the home under the current zoning regulations in place when we bought it. The zoning at the time would allow us to remodel or rebuild a home of similar size to the existing home. The home is about 3,000 square feet, and it's been that for decades. The city is now considering changing the zoning and only allowing us to remodel or rebuild a 2,300 square foot home. You are proposing to take 700 feet away from me. This completely invalidates the calculations I made to justify the purchase of this home. How can the city justify changing the rules on existing homeowners who have made decisions and investments based on the current rules? I've written 3 detailed letters to the Planning Commission documenting my opposition to this ordinance or amendment. So I'm not going to speed read all 3 of these letters to you tonight because I've got 3 minutes. Numerous other homeowners have also provided very well thought out and articulated public input. I encourage all homeowners, Planning Commission, and City Council members to carefully read this input. I understand the desire to create more affordable housing in Cannon Beach. I have absolutely no issue with this. I think that's good. My issue is with the FAR reduction. If the primary focus is affordable housing, then address that. If you want to force homeowners into building smaller houses, then address FAR. The commingling of these 2 issues has created an untenable situation. Trying to incent homeowners into building ADUs by threatening to reduce their buildable space is not an incentive. The other disincentive is that homeowners can no longer use the primary structure as a short-term rental. Let me discuss my particular situation. Based on the size and the position of my lot, there really isn't a reasonable place to build an ADU. The only possible place for me to build that ADU would be between the back of my home and my view of the ocean. I'm not sure who would do that. Secondly, you want me to give up 700 square feet, but you will then give back most of that space if I put it into an ADU. This give back is not space for my family to use. On top of losing space for my family, you will not allow me to rent the primary structure home as a short-term rental. This is a serious financial penalty. So bottom line, you will take away 700 square feet that I currently have and have planned to continue to use in my remodel or rebuild. However, you will allow me to divert that taken buildable space if I spend the money to build an ADU. This will no longer be space for my family. As if this is not enough, you then eliminate the opportunity for STR income, which would help me set off the crazy price that I paid for this home. You have tried to position the STR reduction as an incentive to build affordable housing. There is no incentive, only disincentives for me. Bottom line, leave the STR alone. Focus on serious options for developing significant affordable housing. Duplexes, multifamily, incent building on city-owned land. There are a lot of options other than trying to take my property away. So that's it for me. Thanks for listening. I'm the new kid on the block. I don't want to act like I'm stirring the pot here, but I'm still trying to kind of figure out how this works in Cannon Beach. So I may be asking questions that are on the fringe, but I'm going to ask them because I'm learning. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on that? Okay, we'll ask for more time for any more public testimony. Once, twice. Okay, we'll move to our deliberative close the. Well, we are at now a point where we could close the discussion and just move to our deliberation.
So,
How do people feel about that? We've had 3 sessions on this, 3 hearings on this.
Let's do that.
Close it and make some sort of recommendations. Is that the goal? Okay, so we're going to close for public testimony and we'll move to our deliberation. Who'd like to start?
Well, I guess first we need to decide, whether or not we feel like, there are issues with the way that this was constructed. Because there's no sense in going forward because we can agree that it was constructed while the code change.
I'm glad you brought that up. We've heard from a number of people, including Tim here tonight, that there's concern about public notices. I always like to address these things as best I can, so people know that they've been heard. I do feel like as a planning commission, we're not in the spot to make a decision as to whether something did or didn't happen. That's, did you not hear? Not hearing the back, okay. So as a planning commission, I don't know that it's in our purview to make the decision that we have or have not followed. I can say that from my experience, and I'll speak only from myself, we have tried to follow the advice we've been given, the training we've been given, the best we can.
So the assumption is that since it is to us, then it was all legally done. And, we can continue on with,
we have not been briefed by the city attorney.
Well,
So I don't think we should try to make any legal determination, and we are only making recommendations.
Yeah,
This is an issue.
and the last thing we should do is take legal advice from Tim Ramey.
well,
Let's,
I'm not saying, take legal advice from anybody with the city attorney. So, yeah, I just want those questions answered. We're going to spend a lot of time on it. Going forward, I think that we should assure ourselves that, we're not wasting our time by moving forward on this. And
I
that's
think
where I'd like to have some questions answered, like some of the comments that were made.
in fairness, I feel like I just have to say, I mean, Tim Ramey is not the only person to bring this up. It has been brought up enough times. It's a serious issue. I think we do need to have a serious conversation about it.
Something else. Tim gave a recommendation that, I'm not opposed to the work product going back and starting over. I really am not. I mean, I hate to see people object to content based upon process as opposed to hitting the issue straight up, but, if we wanted to make a recommendation to the city council, and it's not a bad one, you know, we are passing this on. At this point, we recommend perhaps that you slow down, send it back to the process. We just start over, this is the work product we have, and
What would you do differently about what we've done?
I can't figure out a single damn thing that we could have done to move the ball forward.
Agreed.
And,
Involve the public.
Oh, we have to close the record.
unfortunately, I find drafting anything by committee to be, well, I'll skip my word for it, Tim, but the
Please don't
initials are
direct-
RF.
Do not direct testimony to individuals.
Anyway, again, and with the trees too, I mean, if people don't like the trees and they wanna say it was illegally devised or written, hey, fine, let them say it, we'll start over, we get to the same damn place. We just waste a lot of time doing it, and it's unfortunate because the trees are coming down and we're losing opportunities to build affordable housing, or at least try to incentivize it, but hey, let's be big boys and girls. I will never apologize to anybody for what I did. And I won't apologize, publicly like I'm a schoolboy. And, I find parts of this process just, hard to deal with. But I'll leave my personal opinions aside. Let's just send it to the council and say, this is a good work product, but we have a process issue. We're back in that space where people are pointing fingers. Let's start.
So instead of saying this, what about just saying, I think this is a good product, city council in this position. Are very aware of this issue, I'm sure that it will be taken up at that level, I don't think we need to weigh in on process.
Okay.
That's not what we were asked for.
Okay.
We were asked to provide a recommendation whether this is a good product.
Hmm.
I think we follow that lead and we don't interject ourselves into something that we really don't have purview over.
Okay.
I will say that from my personal perspective, there has been an amazing amount of opportunity for public input.
Yep.
Before that housing group was even formed, Marcy had presented the idea of our give back based on Jeff Adams' original work. That housing group was formed knowing that that was likely to be a central component of anything that came out of the work product. We had legal counsel who told us a focus group was fine because it was only providing recommendations to a consultant who works for the city. It was not a recommendation directly to any governing body. Furthermore, we had, I think, at least 5 joint sessions that were open to the public. We received public comment. Much of it was public comment from the people who work here and who said how desperately we need to deal with the situation, not send it back to the drawing board, but do something. Furthermore, in each one of those sessions, Marcy provided a very clear update on what the focus group suggested at the time. So there was a lot of public opportunity to know what the work group was doing. So I overall, plus of course, we've just had 3 hearings. I overall feel that if we look at the spirit of the public meeting law, that has been met. I agree that maybe in the future, we need to be more aware. And we've learned some lessons. We now know that there was recent legislative change that has definitely changed the landscape. And we should all be aware of that, but at this point, there has been an incredible amount of opportunity.
I share that, and
I think one of the tests for me is, if there was a defect, and we're not here to judge that, but if there was a defect, have we allowed and considered an opportunity for security? We've had 3 sessions on this. I can't even get to the chair instructions. We're in such a unique position because we've just never done that before. We've had 3 different hearings on this. We've talked about the issues that have been brought before us that we thought were relative and some that even weren't. And we haven't voted yet. We do not know how we stand on this most controversial issue, which seems to be the thought. We may not agree, but it is open, it is public. People have had their opportunity to present their opinions to us. We have considered that, and we are going to present back to the community those things that we're going to present to the city council, those things that we believe the public has shared and we believe should be considered by them. So after that, I don't know what you do or what you're going to accomplish in something that someone believes could have been handled better, that we didn't attempt to do to begin with. Imperfect, very likely there's something that could have been done better. Breaking the law, well, no, I mean, maybe we will know, maybe we won't, we don't know the situation. But we do know we've made a good faith effort to try to run a process that people could give us their contributions to, and we could make recommendations. And from there, you know, I don't know what else you do. I mean, if someone doesn't want changes to occur, like, I looked at some of the historic documents, these changes are controversial. 30 years ago, they were duking it out, and the change is not something people like to see, and it inevitably is gonna have someone really happy and someone not so happy. All we can do is our best to try to balance what's fair from a diverse group of people who do not share the same thing.
I agree. I can agree with Mike. I think we viewed this spot regardless if we sent it back or not. There's some great ideas in here. There are also some things that, I see maybe need a little bit of work. That's why we're here. I'm satisfied that we're here under, legal authority, or however you want to put it, to do this work that's been presented to us. So I had to ask the question, and I think we satisfied the answer.
You know, I've struggled with what role the planning commission is expected to play in this particular one. There are, and particularly leading on a lot of the public input that you've received, there are what I would consider 3 or 4 strong objections to specific pieces of, you know, certainly the bar reduction is probably maybe the biggest one, but there are others about, you know, this could be considered a taking, and there may be a legal challenge looking at that. I can't render an opinion on that. But is it the place of this body to deal with that, or is it the place for this body to, I'm not quite sure what we're supposed to do, but to send it on to council and share those kinds of concerns that we've had to make sure that the public comment, the public input is carried forward. I don't know exactly what to do.
I think we're just here to make recommendations to the council, and give further public input, which we have done. And we go through this, with a different set of eyes and some same sets of eyes, and then make determinations, recommendations.
Would we like, with that in mind, should we maybe dive into some of the
Yes.
more controversial recommendations we've discussed? How about the bar conversation?
Well, I'll stand by my comment of last week, and that is, when I say lot line to lot line, I mean 5-foot setback to 5-foot setback, not necessarily the lot line itself to the lot line itself, to clarify that. The other thing is, with the 0.46, something like the 0.6 that we have now, it does gives us options on any piece of property to be able to look at well and around on the property. It also leaves us the room for a 800 square foot ADU on the property. And then incentivize somebody to maybe do that, with 0.46 and an additional 800 square feet. Now, one of the commenters did talk about the taking of his currently 3,000 square foot home. As I understand, he talked about grandfathering in a rebuild or remodel that doesn't expand on that 3,000, but he can continue to use, he or she can continue to use their 3,000 square foot home and rebuild it as it was, as a grandfathered in part of the code. So that would alleviate the taking.
Can I jump in on just that one for a second? If you have a 3,000 foot house built in I don't know what Mr. Moore's 30. That house would be built to a very different floor plate today. At what point do we allow, or what is the distinction between we're gonna build it just exactly what it was, the 1930 standard, to considering a different floor plan within 3,000 feet.
The code addresses that situation.
So we would then say, and I know the code does currently, but would we consider some sort of allowance for some change going, to offset the idea that someone says, hey, I've got a 3,000 foot house, you're coming to me now saying I've only got 2,300. Could there be some allowance for change?
Give me an example. I mean, you're saying take, not go with 3,000, go with something less.
Keep the 3,000 as a big term, just ripping off the run, just thinking off the top of my head. So someone's got a 3,000 foot house, they can rebuild 3,000 foot house currently to the same floor plate. We allow them some percentage of change to that floor plate. So, you know, one of the challenges to these older houses, again, I don't know the specifics of any one individual's house, Mr. Moore's specifically, but often have really small bedrooms. If you wanted a larger bedroom, you could have.
Oh, yeah, well, the floor plan, yeah, I think that.
I think that's getting into the minutia.
Yeah,
The essence of what he's saying, if we have a house with 5,000 square foot lot that's currently built to 0.6, that it should be rebuilt to the current code that it's standing on prior to our involvement in this. So they would be able to rebuild, they chose to rebuild, be able to rebuild to the 0.6 FAR. But would still be held to current standards such as setback, social front setback, and locker.
Is that everybody's understanding in terms of?
So you're saying you would create a special pre-existing use provision related with this ordinance, because what we have in the rest of the code is a pre-existing use condition, but if you remodel intentionally for the value that's what is it, 60%?
50%.
50%.
Of the real market value.
Real market value, then you can't build on your pre-existing, but currently, Mr. Moore, for instance, as long as he remodels at less than 50% current market value, can do that, and he can do that per this code, whether we change FAR.
Never done a house or able to remodel at some.
No,
point.
but I'm saying that, you know, I think that's my question.
Right.
Are we trying to suggest to council that that's something for them to consider, a special grandfathering pre-existing clause within this code, or are we saying that we're okay with the way that the current code works?
I lean toward the current code. I think if you try to create a special one here, basically just emptying every house that's owned up to this point, and you can basically kiss it on the back. Right, I'm sympathetic to Mr. Moore's concerns, and I agree with Nikki, there are options he has.
So in
I'm sorry, go ahead, Steve.
under the current code, you wouldn't be able to rebuild a 3,000 square foot home, it was greater than 50%.
But there's a clause in there.
It's a natural disaster,
Yeah.
by choice.
Right.
If he chooses to take down part of it or remodel, then he's subject to the existing code if that remodel is at a cost of 150%.
Steve, are we accurate in that for that?
Yeah, and what you're talking about is the non-conforming structure, and if there was a back of that, a person has the ability to kind of rebuild what, was there previously. With a non-conforming structure, there are certain values associated, like the 50% of the assessed value in a certain amount of time. That gives you some expansion ability, provided that that expansion is meeting like the setbacks, you know, things of that nature. So there is some wiggle room. They, you know, probably the biggest concern is the fact that when you make such a change, you're creating less non-conforming structures for the ones that are now over the 2,300. So that is probably the you know, the hardest aspect of the change is creating that conformity, because that's what you're trying to stay away.
There was always a recognition, you know, there's something about the link from the city page to the municipal code that isn't working. I mean, you guys check on that, because I go to Eco 360 and I get up and down on the home page. Sorry, interruption. It's a recognition that the non-conforming structures and non-conforming uses provision could be clarified, and that needs to be done. But, I think that it provides a lot of options to people who bought a house on the assumption that they could update it.
That's only updating existing structure though. We're talking about rebuilding and not taking away from somebody that already has something. And that's something I'm intrigued by the grandfather funds and how we did. Put that to a decent language where, if someone chose to rebuild their house. They would have to conform to standards other than FAR.
Right. I know. Well,
Setback,
well,
lot coverage, just the FAR component would still remain the same for them at that point. Six.
Maybe that's a recommendation you pass on.
yeah, I think taking, did you have one?
Yeah, the only other thing I was gonna talk about was when it appears that in 1979, the zoning ordinance must have been amended in some fashion or completely changed. And there's a section 17.880.060, which is called pre-existing uses. And it kind of talks about, hey, if these uses were allowed prior to 79, it's kind of like a grandfathering situation. And maybe instead of just the pre-existing uses of this section, there could be some type of pre-existing structure kind of mimicking maybe this section that could potentially address some of the concerns that, such as those who are over, the 2,300, that, let's just say 3,000, because that's what we're talking about. And that might give them the opportunity to then use a section similar to this and allow those people to continue to have the ability to keep that same square footage. So I think that, that is seven, and that one's just, it's in the non-conforming, structure section, it's called pre-existing uses, because there's non-conforming uses, non-conforming structures. And then this talks about that pre-existing uses, and maybe there would be something about pre-existing structures.
Pre-existing FAR.
Something, I'm not saying that's right, I'm just saying it has the opportunity to try to address that situation.
Thank you. Yeah, cause I have, issue with taking somebody's square footage away if they want to rebuild, they purchased a home with certain expectations. Financial considerations, maybe especially. So that's one thing that I think we ought to look at. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Well, we're still talking about FAR, I think.
Yeah.
Conceptually, I still don't even like the notion of reducing FAR. I mean, I know this isn't exactly a correct statement, but I don't think it's our property to take back away, since it's been given to property owners under the conditions that they bought their property, whether it's been built or not. I mean, if the city wanted to incent this, I still think, and I brought it up last time, and maybe you corrected me, because, if we let it go much above 0.6, then we start affecting the character of our neighborhoods, and I get that, but feels so much better to me. We're giving an incentive rather than taking something away, only to turn around and try to give it back with restrictions. I don't like it. That's an aspect of this that I don't think I'll ever be comfortable with, even though I like the goal of what we're trying to do, but I don't think that FAR reduction is the right way to do it. I don't have a better solution, but I don't like it.
Well, codes change all the time, to benefit the community, benefit the future. I think we have a duty here to look at the future and take action. To see, kind of determine what we want our village, our city to look like, in the future. So we were at 0.5 before the 0.6, we're looking at 0.46 or something a little smaller than 6.0. Because things change. We're going to have, or potentially going to have, a grace period, so that people who are keyed up, construction ready, shovel ready, or architect ready, wherever they're at in the process, will have some time to complete their home. With the current code, we talked about 3 months, we talked about 6 months. I heard some of the comments talked about even 24 months. I think that's a little long personally, but, you know, we could entertain any of those numbers, to give people a chance. If they're ready to build, to go ahead and build and not take anything away from them, if they're ready to go. With a 0.46, I think going forward, for all time, it's gonna be cheaper than a 0.60 home. So does that make it affordable to most families? Probably not. Cannon Beach discussed that also. But, you know, whether you sell it in 5 years or 50 years, it's gonna be less expensive than the 0.60 FAR home. Most likely. There are some expensive smaller homes, but we're talking about incorporating some aspects of affordability, coupling that with the FAR, then that's something I think we need to look at. The other thing I think about the 0.46 or reducing FAR is that it gives the ability of the architect, the contractors, to move that structure around on that block and say what's important to the city. I think what's important to the city and the residents, is nature and trees and, you know, kind of a coastal feel. If we've got a 0.60, and I've seen them in my neighborhood and other neighborhoods, it really reduces, a lot of the nature we love so much. And when I say we, but I think that, you know, the Chamber of Commerce just came out and said we had more than 10 million visitors. Well, it wasn't because we're got 0.60, by FAR, I'll tell you that. And, it's because we do protect what's important or what brings people to this area. And I think that, there were some other comments about the current FARs of different people who sit on this commission. And I fail to see how the current FAR of anybody's property who sits on this commission, would have any, significant effect on what we're trying to do going forward, what we're trying to protect. Whether I live in a 10,000 square foot house or a 1,000 square foot house. I think it's irrelevant.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate piece. We do have people who have said this needs to be done. We have a survey that says the problem with home, housing security is linked in a large way to FARs. There are cities like Portland who have already reduced FARs. They were driving toward more density. I don't mind that one of the features of this is that maybe we preserve some trees and preserve our character, but the reality is the way this is structured, it does create density. You know, I don't want to argue with anybody who says, well, wait a minute, you're restricting me because, you know, it's what they believe is important. But I will say to somebody, like Mr. Moore, that house, that ADU can be used for his family anytime he wants. Just like another house, and if he has older children, I don't know, maybe it's a good thing. But I don't wanna get into that, it's just that we are building density right into this proposal. And without it, you know, you get a little bit of housing maybe in the opportunity zone and you. If we were to give up on anything, it would be creating more density and public benefit, we just don't have enough incentives there. But the FAR reduction creates immediate opportunities for more density.
Also, I would just point out that most of the homes in this town are not 0.6. So it's not as though suddenly everyone's in a home that's 0.6 and now suddenly you can't have that.
No.
So this isn't as though it's actually taking something that exists for the majority of the homeowners in this town.
So, you know, I think, you know, my personal opinion on FAR reduction is to forward. These are serious proposals that were thought through by people who have a lot of data. And I looked at other communities and found that these these changes made differences there, made improvements. The council might decide, we don't wanna go there because there's an outcry. I would encourage them to try to get out and talk to other people than just the people who come in here and complain. But I would like to push it through. I mean, it's a package. You've got a package of opportunities here that the city can pick and choose from, none of which are silver bullet, all of which will have.
I am so conflicted on this bar question. I passionately believe in affordable housing. But it is absolutely coming, at least in some part of my mind, on the back of someone else who thought they had an expectation for what they had in front of them. And that, yes, laws do change, or excuse me, yes, codes do change, but so do laws. And the idea that we have, or are putting into place something that could be considered a taking, is something that needs to be seriously considered. Because at some point, we are asking someone to get something. We have specific examples of people saying, you are putting this on my back. And I'm struggling with that concept as well.
But we have, at Jane's suggestion, increased the amount of time to allow those people who actually have invested in that an opportunity to finish their process.
And offset
I think
for me
that
would be
that's
more time,
important.
90 days, as we know from some of the permits we get through. is-
That's already, the 90 days is just complete something that's already.
So maybe that's the conversation to have, but
I would be open to that conversation. I think just the hard word to flip it is just too hard.
what would feel like the right middle ground that we don't incentivize sudden people who actually weren't planning to expansion, but at the same time, the people who legitimately had a plan to complete it.
I think it was 9 or 12 months, maybe, that. I would rather see the shorter rather than the longer, but.
12 month would be the minimum to start complete permit. In my opinion, someone needed to start the road from start.
So I think that's, for me, an argument not to make it 12, because I could see incentivizing people who might not ever change, but 9 months is maybe the person who's put it into motion.
But 90 days is already emotionally done, so, you know. It's,
So they're already grandfathered.
but that's, that's where. I think that may not work parallel with the grandfather. Is that, we have, we don't take away from something already happened. But we give the opportunity to complete or get in motion. Cause the permitting process goes on the date that you was in it, on the basis of the code there, or whatever we appreciate there. So I think that's something that. That's why I like speaking, but right away from the grandfather. But, on talking time. Yes, it will incentivize people to get on board and get things moving. But this is their opportunity to do so before you get away. So, now, historically, I like history as much as I can. One thing that I have here is Ryan Marbar was the original language that his recommendation that Stephen Robert would do in 1993, when they changed it to 0.5.6. And I'm not advocating either of them, just something to put in the record before you guys know, but I don't know if Steve never saw it. He knows that in his finding for the amendments consistent with the comprehensive plan, changed from 0.5 to 0.6 in R and R2 RN. He states that the city recognizes the importance of its existing residential neighborhoods in defining the character of the community and will strive to accommodate new residential development in a manner that is sensitive to the scale, character, and density of existing residential development pattern. The city contains dwellings with a variety of floor area ratios. The proposed floor area ratio requirements will accommodate houses that can provide for a broad range of housing needs while ensuring such dwellings are consistent with the scale of existing residential development pattern. Conclusion, only meets this criteria. That's from 1993. So we know the history of it, and they approved that in March of 93 from 0.5 to 0.6.
And I would say for those very reasons, we're looking at 0.46.
So would you expand on that a little bit? How do you see that being the same reason. What am I?
I see.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jay.
I see driving around as a dot color. And I think we had a vision for the town, which we have drafted through Biden and through him, to our current standard 26, and I'm not having, I'm open for discussion. Are we doing something that would drastically improve one, housing prices, and two, the character of Palm Beach? I feel we have two things on the table.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive though, and I think that, 0.46 for me and the constituents that I've spoken with, think that something smaller than 0.6 is more in line with what they want going forward than the current sits up. We're seeing a lot of, homes, newer homes, in say the last 10, maybe 15 years that are much larger and they stick out. They're not a character with, you look at the village feel. Not all of them stick out, but there are a lot of them that are built without, I think, that much imagination. They're built in rectangles and cover 96 of the lot, so they got hardscape all over, and I just don't think they have the appeal that we're looking for. And, you know, other folks have said, well, you're taking away the value of my lot, and I said, well, to that, I'm thinking, I think the value of this city is its character and its appeal. So if we take that away, it might lessen the value of your lot and not increase the value, regardless of its size. And I think lot appropriate means not 0.6. I think what was his name, Barlow?
Right.
So Barlow speaks to is absolutely what we want to achieve now also. We have a little bit different vision now, for maybe various reasons. I'm not sure why this committee was put together in the first place, if there was a lot of public input or public outcry for something like to be done. But I think it's a move in the right direction to at least look at that and reduce it to something less than 0.6. And again, some of the neighbors that I have that have recently built have built to that 0.6. They didn't intend in the first iteration of their design to be at 0.6. They wanted something smaller. When they get into conversations with the contractor, well, I can build you something that's a lot cheaper per square foot. If you let me put it all under one roof, make a rectangle and cover a lot of your lot. And it's not gonna cost you that much more. But
we should keep our focus on affordable housing.
And to that point, my concern would be, as we've discussed, and the reason that this whole effort began. This is a way to incentivize more affordable housing, or at least workforce housing, without the city needing to find money to do the incentive process.
Right.
So if we think about it that way, we're going back to the housing. If we were to quote unquote incentivize by allowing more than 0.6 FAR, I then think we really do begin to run into issues with overbuilt neighborhoods. That does truly impact the experience for neighbors. So the idea was, yes, there's a little bit that is being taken, not in a legal sense, but in a conceptual sense, from current landowners when they are now confined to 0.46. It's not a big difference, but it does allow the city to do something really important.
It was a public benefit, and the benefit that we were hearing and still are, Michelle said, articulated quite eloquently, is we have a problem. You know, in '88, we've updated code to put ADUs in. So what was that in 93, 96? We updated code to get, that's all we get anymore. We're not getting diversity, we're just getting the biggest possible house. And it's taken away opportunities for people to build homes that fit the budget. Or to provide units that fit the budget. And we have delivered that. Now, the city and the council as elected representatives need to decide whether that is enough benefit.
I don't think we should put this entirely on the backs of, the citizens either. I think the city can invest something.
Well, they can't, right, that's beyond our scope.
That'll be another problem.
Yeah, that's another problem,
Multi-
but I'm just saying. Incentivizing is one thing, relying entirely on that.
No, and they can't.
I mean, let me show you how it works. Steve, we could do this and we could say 46%, 800 square foot ADU, get you up to somewhere 60, a little bit over 60% actually. You know, you can't short term rent it. If you wanna live in it, you can. But, you know, if you wanna make a little bit of money, extra money, we've got this lease rent program. And we can actually help bring down that market rate a little bit for people we need to be here in this community. I mean, so, you know, I hate to break it to people that Bonfire has no impact on density, but it does.
I agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
I think another issue that I have with the development, are we talking, what character of communities are we preserving, residential? Or Southtown or Northtown? Northtown is all mostly R2, RL, Southtown is mostly R1. That's the sugar go. Do we have to include R1? Do we just concentrate on the R2 for the smaller housing that they are and duplex? Where we have opportunities specifically, to increase density.
What's
Why exclude the R1?
Yeah.
That's not the place that we're trying to concentrate on. I think we're concentrating on residential.
No.
But I
So
think
that's
that
the character, that's
the expanded opportunity for housing to include both is important.
R1's just 80.
Certainly.
R1's just 80. That's the only thing we can get out of it. R1s are 80.
And that's what we're trying to get at.
Bump up the size of the AD. allow-
We did.
Well, let's keep the FAR on R1 the same. That means they have a smaller house, larger AD.
But the ADU is on top of the FAR right now. The way that this.
I mean, so for improvement, I think there that, you know, maybe they don't get the owner incentive in our, but they, you know, just, I don't think I have bigger ADU, they just start around.
I like the idea of doing both R1 and R2 myself. I think that it just increases the opportunities for the.
Yeah, I don't think residents are the only area we're protecting. There are one zones, different neighborhoods that also deserve the same consideration.
And we have a couple of cottages on the street. Oh, no, we're not, but they'll be gone soon.
Yeah.
I don't know. To be honest with you.
R2.
Where are?
It would be nice, I think, to be able to see what the community feels about just the reduction in FAR. Away from all the other considerations that are part of this, I mean, that's a lot of the negative feedback that I think we've heard is, well, I don't want to reduce it. Well, it's so hard to understand when it's mixed in with the give backs, the ADU possibilities, the duplexes, and when you can't do it and when you can. And I just don't even know that if you just came back with the argument, you know, this will be more like the village character we want. We'll have more room for trees, all those positives that you were extolling, Steve. Would the community say, yeah, you know what, 0.6 was always too big? I don't think you'll get that feedback.
No, the
But-
point is the give back. It's
Well,
not,
it
the
is.
point is not to reduce the FAR just for the heck of it.
But I
It's-
don't think.
It is
that's what
because it's an
people are
opportunity for them.
valuing. It's all those givebacks are kind of going forward and have strings attached that some people don't
I'm a
like.
homeowner, it doesn't feel like a give back, it feels like a give back something we took.
And, you know, I mean, we had some feedback that said, look, you know, you're mixing too many different things together. And frankly, that's part of the problem with this, is it's very confusing. Is to me, you know, I don't know. I've already kind of said, I feel bad about trying to reduce the FAR just so I can give it back, but that's just my personal feeling. I think that's the most valuable thing, though, that you've got to give back as an incentive. I mean, you reduce setbacks and waiving parking requirements. I don't know that anybody cares about that.
Well, I don't think it's taking anything, we're simply changing the code, we're then allowing ADUs to be put there as well, that's two separate structures, it's two separate things, so the ADU could be 800, or your primary residence or primary structure at 0.46. I don't, you know, that's pretty straightforward.
I think we should expand the commission and council and vote on every issue that, as a public, every issue that comes up. Then there's no confusion.
I'm sure that's gonna work.
Where are we on the trees of the city council? What's these guidelines now? I think we need to consider that we, you know, our purpose to give the city council something that's easy to navigate and is not going to wind up taking 8 months, 9 months through considerable negotiation again, which maybe we could work out ahead of time for them to deliberate on. And I think that's our responsibility, to give them something that's votable on.
My personal opinion is it's a serious offer, a serious proposal. It's one that, you know, if you look at any academic magazine, if you look at any city, it's coming down to, you gotta shrink houses to build density. We just added a little bit by building the density into the shrink. So, this is what you let people decide. It's not what you. Yeah, that's what you let people decide.
And those
That's
people.
what, they're, they elect us, so we are taking their voice for the people in some sense.
And I mean, look, you know, I hate to see you guys break it down and say, I like this piece, but I don't like that. You know, you basically destroy a package that, you know, hits the city at multiple points and gives us different opportunities to build housing. Recognizing that, you know, we're not gonna change the market, the best we can do is incentivize.
But isn't that our responsibility to take it line by line, and talk about every single point before it gets.
Although we have talked about every single point, you know, I didn't envision this as something that was before us as we could line item veto it. So, you know, again, it's a serious proposal that the council will need to decide.
Well, I'm not sure this proposal is there. So, and I'm hearing that voice some of my own concerns. Around the largest of the issues, and we still got another one. I think there are some places that there's room for some compromise.
Well, we found that, we tried to find.
I don't know that we have that part discussion from anyone, but,
You know, there were other things, I know Mickey's, I'm sorry about that, I mean, I get it, but instead of 60, you could go to 65, right, and give that the upside.
65.
For the public benefit, if the city decides to do that.
I don't think that's, I absolutely. I can't get there with that. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Well, what about the FAR in R2 for duplexes? Have we discussed that?
Yeah, that's what I was just talking about, and it could for a duplex give a little bit more. Again, you're right, whoever's concerned about FARs, and you see a benefit there. You know, I hate to think that a city like Cannon Beach cannot learn from its errors and move forward and that people can see that, yeah, there's pain. But we have, being a commitment to our citizens. And that, you know,
So we have 2 data points on that. We have a number of people saying 89%, as I recall, when we surveyed, and we got some pretty high results, saying affordability is the answer. And we've also had pretty tremendous turnout, not exclusively opposed to, but a number of people very concerned about this issue from being a taking to, you know, why is this the first option the city's considering, for example, affordable housing?
we've been
Why?
working it since 1988.
Well, laws have changed, codes have changed, and yeah, and I'm not saying we don't need to continue working it, it's just.
I want to make one point. We're usually taking in a sense that, I'm not a judge, I'm very certain there's no legal taking here.
I can't do it, so.
Well, then I think you need to get in for attorney, because we haven't seen it.
We have
But
a word law as well, that does say that. when these laws
The
change.
court says, asking somebody to build a 100-foot house on a 1,000-foot piece of property is not taken.
The court has ruled that if you have a set of, I mean, there's different rulings on this. And I'm not an attorney nor do I pretend to be. But my recollection on significant laws around takings are, if I buy a property with a certain set of expectations, and you come in as a jurisdictional body and take away some piece of that, I have a right to become.
It has to be.
Beneficially.
It has to be a very, very significant reduction in the market value. So going from 3,000 square feet to 2,300 square feet, the property value, the investment back expectation has not been reduced significantly. There is a case in which a lady had a lot that was, I think, a wetland lot. City changed code, she could have built a 400 square foot house. The court upheld that it was not a taking because she could still build 400 square feet on her property. So when we talk about the difference between 3,000 and 2,300, we are not approaching what the courts have upheld as not being a taking.
I think that due compensation comes in, when you're talking about rights of way, talking about, the real property devaluation, like just 25% or so. And personally, I don't see where a code change would be construed as a taking anywhere. Unless it was something very significant and there was no reason behind it. Common sense behind it.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me.
Yeah, the legal is different from the moral.
If I could just say too, I do think that the risk assessment that will be done by the city council, if it's a recommendation come to them, would likely include, some questions to the city attorney about, potential risks or even positives. But I guess luckily, perhaps, it's not necessarily something that the planning commission needs to worry about.
Yeah.
From a city perspective.
Yeah, we started to determine legalities again.
I guess for me, it's just mainly kind of
So what's next on the agenda after FAR? Have we exhausted that or do we want to continue there?
well, it's for us as a group to decide what we want to talk about.
Well, I mean, I think FAR, we've talked about, the taking issue where, at least know a little bit more about it. Anyway, what about the parking? That was something that came up quite a bit, it's one thing to waive parking requirements on property, but that pushes them all out on the on-street parking, which seems to Yeah, I think the gist was just gonna make things work. Is that a,
Well,
that
I'd
let's
say
start, should we?
most of the renters of the ADUs eventually would be seasonal help, that a lot of them don't have cars. They can walk to
I don't know anybody that doesn't have a car.
their, well, everybody that comes in for the conference camp that they have every summer, they don't bring their cars with them, and they do work downtown, a lot of them. Many of the hotel workers come in seasonally, do not have vehicles. But, yeah, in my circle too, last I agree, everybody's got a car or two.
Again, still, it's one of those things where we figured out the parking in the city. Because one of the things that's preventing us from making the required changes, we go downtown and here in our residential areas. I mean, it's, I can't decide the trailer, I'm not here to do it, but I see the parking does create some reducing parking. The problems on saying does help people feel more.
Oh, yeah, well, and I mean, specifically for me, I could put an ADU either in or attached to my house if I didn't have to meet the parking. I mean, so that's probably a huge burden for me right now, but that isn't the public feedback that.
Well, there's another aspect of parking in there too, and it's downtown. I do like the idea of the opportunity zone and maybe empowering somebody to create workforce housing down on Spruce, right, between first and second, but, you know, they won't do it unless you give them, relief from parking.
Yeah.
Now, you know, the discussion always was how much of that building you want to be affordable housing and how much you want to sell toward, you know, lower cost condos. And, you know, it gets really different there, but what we decided was that downtown would only be for affordable housing. There is a bigger parking issue where you want to create housing that's affordable for people who, you know, get into $500,000 or $600,000, that you might want to change the parking for that. But we didn't go that far. Again, it's, you know, it's like, we tried to go right down the middle between people who were saying, don't do all this stuff, and people are saying you're not moving fast enough. And all we could do is try to find a set of things that would lay out, that we could lay out in a many fashion that would allow people, allow the city to meet its obligations under it. It was as simple as that.
Or it needs to be addressed citywide.
It's a city problem. It's a policy issue.
So consistency and et cetera. Nice for that, but that's another day, maybe.
Another year or two.
Hopefully soon.
Well,
Yeah, but I don't have a problem with the, you know, not requiring the additional parking spots for an ADU. I think that's a good carrot incentive and. As small as the ADU is, it's not like there's 3 cars for that ADU, but there'll be either 0 or 1.
I think it works best in the R2 for duplexes. Because duplexes in the R2 is our biggest opportunity to increase rents. Plans, ADUs are not going to make a huge impact on what we need. For ability to build duplex centers, detached and centralized growth, where we have decent mind, closest ability and most direct ability to increase our density.
I don't know the difference between duplexes and ADUs. I mean, philosophical, right? They're both accessible dwelling units. One's a little bigger than the other. I don't get.
One being shut down and one's going to. First, that's the major.
Yeah, okay.
We did get a lot of individuals coming at our tour joint sessions, saying that they were looking for smaller units. So I think that we shouldn't assume that everyone needs a duplex, because I think that many of our workers are actually single, or maybe a couple of floors.
Yeah, it's just a variety of housing for opportunities for people who.
Or it's gonna be shared housing. In fact, 5 guys working at Pelican live in the same house at 35 years old. He came out and told us that. And that's. Oh, and we, you know, heard that at 30 some years old. So I know, and that's where I think, that's again, I feel the buses are based on to increase on.
And we have, right?
Right, and that's strictly R2, yeah, we're not touching R3 where we have multiple units. It's, you know, R1 was AD, R2 is PFAS. Very straightforward on our end.
Detached.
Well, yeah, I prefer attached, rather than if we go up, you know, it's an incentive like that, I mean, you get small stuff instead of steeper.
Yeah, I like detached also because it gives flexibility again on the property. Yeah.
And, you know, even in the park, you know, we look at the structure that's going down the seaside and water there. They are not gonna have a set park for every one of those units. It's 4 buildings with a small parking lot, so they're making concessions for parking there. And they're built for large housing development in a very small spot. Which I think we need to focus a lot more on.
I wish we had one.
I wish we could do, you know, or find a way to do it, because that is really what we need to utilize that R3 zone.
Any other issues that we need to address?
You know, I'd love to know what we need to move forward and move this forward.
Could we discuss the age restrictions or that? You know, requiring folks to live in a 0.46 with an ADU, taking away the SDR benefit for that.
Well, I thought that was a central part of this, is that there's no reason to go forward if SDRs are allowed.
With an ADU.
Yeah.
With any of these give backs.
Yeah.
We're not doing any right now.
Yeah, but the give backs, I think. Very helpful. Well, here's what I think we can do to move forward. So grandfathering, in some language that Steve discussed. 70s, 79, something like that kind of verbiage that allows a rebuild of 3,000 square foot home where one currently exists. So that we're actually not taking anything away. Discussion of the waiting period, a grace period or waiting period before this code is enacted. Some recommendation to council for that, maybe 9 to 12 months we talked about. We can come to some agreement. That's for a motion. And then I think put forward the bar of 0.46, which is, you know, not arbitrary, but derived from other cities' experiences. I think basically those 3 things.
And with Marcy's, changes.
With the red lines.
Yeah, whatever.
And with Marcy's changes. I think we could put forward a motion addressing those issues and moving forward.
So the motion would be, recommend forwarding this to the planning commission and all with the following conditions. Yeah, to the council, that's right. Yeah, that's what you're suggesting.
Yeah, with the changes to, for the grandfathering into the non-conforming. Code non-conforming, it's current, previously existing. With the proposed grace period or waiting period before enacting the code. And with the FAR, no, I haven't heard anything besides 0.6 or 0.46. But of the 2, I would select 0.46.
I don't think we need to call it out, if we just recommend that we're going forward with it.
Very good. I'm sorry if there are any changes to that 0.46, but I haven't heard any address.
One thing I noticed, and Steve, you can correct me on this, I don't think Marcy picked up on rental period for 6 months.
Yeah, she did mention it was in there.
It's in there.
It's in the
The table that she sent
Oh.
for this packet.
Yeah.
So it's not in the red line.
Oh, very.
See it?
Wonderful.
September 10th.
It's in there.
It's at the very end of the packet. It's way down there.
Last two pages. The last two pages.
Yeah, it's on the pre-report now. Right.
Chris, great.
So what do we think about that?
It's a good motion, I'd offer, it probably get us
None, we're close, yeah.
I like to see all,
I'm sorry.
I like to see 1 year.
And I said 9 months.
Okay, anybody else? How do people feel about 9, 12? somewhere?
9 to 12.
Yeah, we could make the recommendation. It should be a long period of time.
Let them.
Let them decide that in 9, 12. I feel good with that.
That's a good idea.
And in terms of honing in on your idea around, the rebuild, do we want to offer any more specific language, or do we want to let them look around and kind of stuff?
Well, I think the language is similar to what Steve offered, that has been in the previous code.
Would just be a recommendation that they consider that,
Yeah.
or leave it as is with the recommendation that the council consider that additional language.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
with additional language, grandfathering in the FAR for pre-existing homes to be rebuilt. Et cetera, et cetera. So I think with those items out of the way, we might be, ready to do a motion, I think.
Pretty darn close, right?
Yeah.
Okay, motion made. Or, out there, anybody else, everything's got.
I just nominate you to make it because you're so good at
Don't
it.
ask you to.
I can second it, but I can't do it.
All right, I move that we approve. ZO 25-002 with the following recommendations, that we allow non-conforming language to grandfather in existing FARs. They're constructed for a certain time, want to put that in. That we recommend the 0.46 FAR. And that we also recommend a waiting period of approximately 9 to 12 months.
For implementation.
Pardon me?
For implementation of the changes.
Yes, for implementation of the proposed changes.
And to include Marcy's.
And to include Marcy's changes of date.
Second.
Further discussion? That's what you call a roll.
Commissioner Matusek,
No.
Commissioner Wade,
Yes.
Commissioner Wade,
Yes.
Commissioner Sinclair,
Yes.
Commissioner Orloff,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes. Recommendations to, city council for ZO 25-2 are hereby adopted and forwarded to the city. Suggested to be forwarded to the city. Okay, let's move on. To the tree report, yes, tree report.
Thank you. The month of August was relatively busy. Approximately 111 trees were approved for removal, 107 which were for construction. That primarily came from 2 lots. The one on Monica Court, the other in the 3900. Tree planting requirements were relatively minimal, due to the number of trees being retained across lots in town.
Questions? Go to the order.
I just have one question for good order. I don't want to prolong things, but when we put conditions on a new permit, how is that documented for planning? So that, for instance, as the permit process goes, you're able to track it, so I'm just thinking this approval we did for the lot on 6. How does that get tracked?
You want to take that one?
Yeah,
Try and take it out.
So during the plan review, we are going to evaluate and include any sorts of fair board reviews and approvals. So for example, planning commission or design review board. And we're going to include conditions of approval from those reviews into the conditions for either the planning review and or building permit as applicable. And or if there are other administrative requirements such as with building permit, X number of trees are to be replanted and attached to the building permit as a condition of approval. Other things such as kind of standing conditions like what we have for time for operation of machinery during excavation permits, those will still apply as, you know, to the building permit. So you can actually see a number of planning conditions attached to a building permit. They kind of trickle down from either planning commission or design review or administrative.
And then it's really just kind of sticking it on your Outlook calendar and sure you're gonna have. I mean, I'm serious, I don't know how else you really do it other than putting it out there for, as a reminder to yourself. A year from whatever the date is, to, you know, give yourself a 30-day whatever prior to it, to be able to remind yourself. I'm not saying that's, but it truly is the way oftentimes we do it.
Yeah, or some things maybe for the statute of building permit, maybe that we go ahead prior to the final inspection or reviewing to ensure that any outstanding conditions were satisfied. For example, tree replanting, that's one of the other things we go look at. Is having trees along the property, have done your replanted. If they have not, I'm gonna hold up with it, soon as they're active, until those conditions are satisfied.
They're elephants. They remember.
Well, I'm glad to hear it, because it seems like it can help you guys.
Anything else? No. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a meeting. We're here.
Yeah, it's a good meeting.
Bye.
Thank you.
Appreciate the team.
Thank you.